Let's introduce our two guest speakers, Mr. Artifacts and also Mads. And Mads, I see you have your hands up. Do you want to kind of kick off why you thought this might be a good conversation to have and introduce yourself and Artifacts, or however you feel best?
Yeah, absolutely not. Thanks for the mic. Appreciate it. I got called a gay cowboy recently, so I had to put up a nice little PFP to match that. But no, I'm excited to be here. I've got some words to talk about, but most importantly, I thought this was a good opportunity for us to kind of get some background information from TPUSA. Now, I echo your words as well, as far as like I'm not really a Charlie Kirk follower per se, but I believe in the values that he represented, as far as family, free speech, and letting voices out. I'm also, not to dox myself, but I happen to be in the area where he was assassinated. That was pretty big and hit home, because I see these mountains on a daily basis, and I have kids. I'm excited for the space. Excited to hear. I don't talk much in spaces, but I do take a lot of this information and I take it out into the real world, and I talk to people and I express my opinions and feelings and all the knowledge that I receive here. Ready to kick it off.
Absolutely, and I appreciate very much so those sentiments and also your thoughtfulness in connecting the dots and connecting us to Mr. Artifacts, who I'm very excited to introduce again. So, Artifacts, if you wouldn't mind kind of sharing a little bit about your personal story, and you could please feel free to add as much color to that and background, because I'm very curious how you initially not only came to be interested in politics but also got aligned with this specific group and obviously some of the professional work that you have expertise in that landed you kind of working with their roster. So, absolutely a pleasure to have you here, my friend, and look forward to hearing from you.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me. It is an honor to be here, and I'm excited to get into this. First off, I just want to wish everybody a very happy White Boy summer, and I just wanted to say hello to the former colleagues that I see in the audience. Pleasure to see you guys. Let's get into it. I first met Charlie Kirk a very long time ago. I was 15 years old. I was a young high school student, interested in politics. I went to a camp in Colorado called the Young Conservatives Leadership Conference. This was at the time when conservatism in politics and MAGA wasn't even really a thing, right? Charlie Kirk wasn't known the way he is today. It was a very small grassroots operation. Charlie got up in front of a room of maybe 50 young people and was like, "Hey, I have a club. I just started this thing. It's called Turning Point. If you're interested, come talk to me." Like it was very much a brief sales pitch, and that was it. And so I went up to him after and I was like, "Hey man, like I'm interested in what you're building. Like let's get connected." And he gave me his number. And from there he was like, "Text me and I'll fast track you into events as much as I can." I kind of just got plugged in from there, right? I tried to start a chapter on my high school campus, and I immediately faced resistance from my school. And so that's kind of how I first got to meet Tyler Bowyer, because I was connected to a field rep at the time. And Tyler was very involved in the field side of things. Back then, it was, again, very early days of Turning Point. It was not what it is today.
And Artifacts, if I could, so your first time there, you're with you're one of 50 people listening to Charlie Kirk. Can you give us a rough idea of what it was like to be there in those early days? What was he like? Was it equally as kind of polished and charismatic? Was it kind of awkward? And can you give us a rough idea of how old he would have been roughly around this point in time?
Yeah, I mean, he was 31 when he passed. I'm 27, so roughly 5 years. If I was 15, it's probably 18, 19, maybe 20. And yeah, I mean, if you've seen those early interviews that they played of him on Fox News from when he had just started Turning Point back in the day, it was exactly like that. Yes, he was always the polished orator that he was, in his prime, but it was still, a very early stage. He sold it as a free market, limited government. Big government sucks was the tagline, right? Which, in hindsight, I just find to be hilarious based on, kind of where we're at and the size of the federal government today. But, that was how it was, pitched initially, was like almost like a Tea Party Patriots movement. Like that was the era. And so as far as he's concerned, like he was always the same person that he ended up being, but he was just a much younger and less developed form of that. And so I got to kind of watch him step into the role that he ended up stepping into, and watch him grow over those years, which was incredible.
That's wild, and thank you for that. I thought it might be an interesting piece. So you got connected then with Tyler. I guess he was helping to run a local chapter. Is that right?
Well, he just kind of had like a hand in the Turning Point operations from an early point when I got connected. And I kind of the timeline's very foggy in my head because it was so long ago. You can look up when they officially moved the headquarters from Illinois, which is where Charlie started it, out of his garage in Lamont, to Phoenix proper. I think it was around 2017 or 2018. It was around the time that I was going to college. And but I mean, like everything in my life was in a way shaped by Charlie Kirk at that age, right? Like I was going to conferences as often as I could. So like in 2015, I went to my first conference for Turning Point. It was called Winter in West Palm Beach back in the day. I have photos of it that I've posted on my timeline. Like this was again like the earliest form of Turning Point events. I think it was like 500 of the student activists from the country that all flew in to a hotel in Tampa. And, to see the size of events that Turning Point has ended up having to where they started, it's just like, it blows your mind to think that like the ballrooms that they now have breakout sessions in was basically like the size of the events back in the day. So there's like an early group of us that, were like Turning Point OGs or whatever, if you want to call it that. People that got involved before it really kicked off into what it became. And so I don't know, like my timeline is all over the place with Turning Point. I have done a bunch of different things with them over the years. Um, and so, long story short, after I started going to events, and Turning Point moved their headquarters to Phoenix, I had also gone to a college that Charlie Kirk himself suggested at the time. At the time, he was suggesting two schools. It was the King's College in Hillsdale. So I ended up going to the King's College in New York City. I was the last student at the King's College to receive the Turning Point USA scholarship that they offered. After I received that scholarship, they stopped offering it for whatever reason. Just kind of weird. Um, but much like you, Ian, you've mentioned like I wasn't always fully, aligned with his views, but like I believed in Charlie Kirk, the person and the vision and his values and the way that he operated fundamentally. Like, did I disagree with how he, perceived Israel over time? For sure. Like, whatever. But like as far as how he was as a person, he was not the type to like let ideological disagreements determine a relationship or a friendship, which I just think is hilarious to see how some of these people today are trying to like redefine the type of person he is, because that's not who he was at all, right? To give you some perspective, like I had taken kind of a step back from Turning Point when I went to college in New York City. I was figuring my life out. I was a young person. Like I didn't really like the way Trump had acted. I was kind of skeptical of him. So I wasn't, necessarily as involved during my college years at certain points. I would always kind of end up interning for them over summers. But, it was Charlie welcomed like free thought and critical thinking, right? And so there was a time I stepped out of school one day in Manhattan and just happened to run into Charlie on the middle of the street. He had just finished a Fox hit. And I was like, dude, what are you doing here? He's like, oh, I just finished a Fox hit. What's up? I was like, I just left school. Like, thanks for recommending Kings. It's great. And, he treated me like a friend. We talked for like 5-10 minutes and we went on our way. And then I ended up, back at an event later and it kept going. But, you know, the early days of Turning Point were completely different to kind of what they ended up being when I saw myself out in 2022. Um, one of the first internships I did for Turning Point was, I believe, the summer of 2018, and the headquarters had just moved there. Um, and they just needed stuff to get done. It was very grassroots, right? Like, they had just bought the building. I remember there was a day, like, I had to build 100 office chairs from IKEA by hand, because like they had just got all of these chairs ordered and they needed to build it. And it was just shit that needed to get done for the sake of the movement. And I was happy to do it. I was a young kid. I believed in Charlie. I believed in his vision. Um, but like,
Did they
again,
give you a real screwdriver? Or did you have to use the little hex thing that they
I
include with the
I think
IKEA
I
furniture?
think I got a drill. I'm pretty certain they were kind enough to
Okay,
give
thank
me a
goodness.
drill. Yeah, it wasn't like, it wasn't abusive or anything like that necessarily. Um, and like, I'll go ahead and pin like my kind of, if I can pin it. Can I pin stuff in here? Yeah.
You should be able to.
So I just pinned like the original post I put out, kind of like explaining my story. If you guys want to scroll through that as I'm explaining, feel free. But it was just a very grassroots organization. Many of the people who were employed there in the earlier days are not necessarily employed there anymore. Um, I had a very unique opportunity to have exposure kind of across the decade of Turning Point at different levels. Like, granted, I wasn't necessarily always a full-time employee of theirs, um, but I got to see how stuff operated from the beginning and how it evolved and grew. And so, like, again, to give you some perspective of just how grassroots it was back in the day, like, I was working directly with Tyler Bowyer to like hire contractors to build out the TV walls that are in the Turning Point headquarters. I hired contractors to, figure out how we were going to paint these walls. Because at the time, the person who was in charge of that was also their HR person, and he took a 3-week vacation to Egypt. So like, they just kind of put me in charge of what he was doing. I wasn't responsible for HR or payroll, but like, I was sitting in his office as an intern, like making contractor calls with Tyler and running to Home Depot. Like, it was just like this, shit needed to get done. So we did it. And it was very much like a family back in the day. Like, we all knew each other. We believed in this movement. Like, conservatism was not cool. It was not trendy. It wasn't even like really talked about. Like, when I moved to New York and was wearing a Ronald Reagan shirt, I was getting, harassed on the subway for it. So it's just a different time. It was a different era. And, if any of you have worked in a startup before, you probably kind of understand this culture I'm describing. Like, stuff needed to get done, and, you were happy to do it. Um, and, I would just go to events, and I worked in many different roles. So like, there was one summer we had an event in DC, and like Candace Owens was there, and Kanye's manager just so happened to be backstage, and I was running AV and got to play the song that Candace walked out to, which was a Kanye song, as his manager was like 5 feet away from me. It's just like, yeah, I had all these very cool, unique experiences from a very young age. And I got to just be exposed to all of these different levels of politics, and also to kind of see how everything worked. Right. And it's funny because, you know, we had gone to CPAC as Turning Point early on. There's photos of it. I was at it a couple times. And eventually, like, they just kind of stopped sending Turning Point delegates to CPAC because they kind of, realized that CPAC was just like an institutional joke. Like it was just full of rhinos, and like there was a lot of, rebranding that Republicans and the movement have done over the years. But like, Turning Point was trying to make themselves better than CPAC, essentially, and I think we've seen them do that tenfold. So I think to say that wasn't necessarily Charlie's vision is not true. He always wanted that, but I think that, like, to make Charlie Kirk seem as if he was just a blind shill for anything the Republicans would do ever, regardless of like the fact that Donald Trump is in power, I think is like not true whatsoever. And I can get into more of that later. Let me finish the story, and feel free to stop me, Ian, if you want to like ask questions or whatever. But by 2020, the pandemic had kicked off, and I had done a couple internships over the summer with Turning Point in different roles, and I moved home from New York City, moved back to Arizona, and things were starting to kind of develop more, and Turning Point just so happened to be hiring in the media department. So I, swiped up on the person who had their story up. I was like, "Yo, what do you guys got? I just moved home," and that's how I ended up interning for the Charlie Kirk show for about 6 months. That was in like June of 2020 till about January of 2021. And so I got to kind of see the behind the scenes of how the Charlie Kirk show operated in the early days. Um, Back then, it was very much like a slow build into, I think, what it became and what it is today. Maybe some of the people who are listening can jump up and like tell me what's changed. But like, when I was there, Charlie was going live and I was responsible for managing freedom at charliekirk.com. I would, have to respond to inquiries and donors and pass it on to whoever. I was also responsible for like managing the list of donors that we got. I would have to handwrite cards and send them out to donors as kind of like a thank you. And, we would also send donors books depending on how much they would donate and stuff. So it's just cool. I got to see like how they were operating on that side. But I think that like 2020 and the Stop the Steal and all of that is kind of when the major shift, if you want to call it, kind of began taking place, right? 2020, January 6th, all of that definitely amplified, MAGA conservatism, the movement, whatever you want to call it. But what people kind of forget is Charlie was like the only one back then who was doing like long form election stream coverage. And like I was involved in a lot of that on the back end, right? So like I'm a senior in college interning for Turning Point or for Charlie Kirk show, excuse me. And the election had just quote unquote been stolen or whatever. And Charlie was going live every night for like 6 hours or more. And so after a full day already at the office, I was getting texts like, hey, can you get on the email and like respond to these people, please? And I watched, like, I kid you not, like I had, up until this point managed this email inbox, got it down to no unreads, whatever. Like within the span of 3 days, we had like 60,000 unread emails. Like that was the time when Charlie first kind of, in my opinion, got blown up to like a national level of prominence, right? It was just an insane flood of attention. I've never seen emails come in that fast. And it was because he was out there publicly challenging the narrative, challenging the election, questioning the results, like whatever the case may be. And people wanted that. Like people bought into that, right? That's what Charlie was all about. That whole experience was a little bit overwhelming, right? Like I went to college for media, and that's originally the role I thought I was getting into. And the Charlie Kirk show was a media role. It ended up not being that. It was far more administrative. Like I said, I was sending emails, signing books, all this kind of stuff. So I was like, dude, I really want to work with cameras and like make videos, right? Like that's what I want to do. So I had reached out to a friend who I knew because again, it was a massive family at Turning Point. We all knew each other, like early days. And so I knew the director of productions at the time, and I was just like, hey man, is there any chance you could like, you have an internship in productions that I could jump into? Graduating in 6 months. I would love to come, maybe work full time eventually. What do you guys got? And so I transitioned in the new year of 2021 into an internship in Turning Point Productions proper. So I started out as a productions intern. And then once I graduated in May, they moved me up to a productions administrator where I worked for, I want to say about a year, maybe a little bit less. Until eventually getting promoted to a producer. And so it was in that role that I, first in the administrative role as an admin, I was, packaging Graham Allen's Daily Show. I was helping to plan and shoot and package Isabel Brown's show called Freedom Seeds. Like these shows don't even really like exist much anymore. We had Benny on the Block. Obviously, Benny's doing his own thing now. But like it's kind of where all of these people began and got their kicks from to begin with, right? So I got to see how a lot of these people act, not necessarily when they're being recorded, whatever the case may be. And so I had a lot of fun in that role. I made a lot of good stuff. I ended up working with Jack Posobiec for about 6 months as well, and made investigative documentaries, made the FBI whistleblower piece. Like it was a fun time. I really did love this role. I loved what I was doing. But at the same time, like, like I'm not an idiot. I'm not a blind, like, I'm not just gonna go along to get along. I'm gonna ask questions because that's what Charlie Kirk was all about, right? He was all about like the why. Like, why are we doing things? Who are we doing this for? Whatever the case may be. So I was always, willing to ask those types of questions. And the more I stayed at Turning Point proper, like the corporate, behemoth that Turning Point was becoming, the more I realized that like it didn't seem like questions that may or may not threaten the institution or what we are doing or like anything like that was not necessarily welcomed. And it was a very strange environment to be in sometimes. Turning Point USA as itself, I mean, like as a company, it's run by pretty much people who are under the age of 30, right? So with that comes a very unique culture. You can ask many other former employees. It's almost like you're working in like a high school. Like the amount of gossip and just like I don't know, unnecessary drama that exists there.
May I ask you a question,
Of
Artifact?
course.
Okay,
Artifacts, right?
no, no, no. Please don't interrupt. You can ask questions afterwards, okay?
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, don't interrupt again, okay?
Well, I'll continue. So, like as the company started to grow, it just like things started to feel off over time. It did not necessarily feel like ultimate free thought was welcomed. It felt like free thought was encouraged up until a point, right? And so I started to notice people being shuffled in and brought in at different points in the timeline, right? Like I was there when Mikey McCoy kind of got shuffled in and Rob McCoy got introduced. I was there, before Andrew Colvette entered the picture. I was there before Blake Neff entered the picture. I was there before Erica Kirk entered the picture, right? So like I saw what Turning Point and how Charlie was before all of these people were kind of put in his life in various times, and then I kind of got to watch what happened after. Um, and also what was happening at the corporate level of Turning Point. People were being promoted and elevated to levels of influence and power who had not really been around the Turning Point ecosystem. Like people were being brought in and made directors or whatever, and they just came from outside, and it's just like, okay, like cool, but like there's people who've been here for 10 years who know how this system works. Why are you promoting outsiders when like there are people who know what's what? So that was just weird. It didn't make sense to me, right? It felt like a lot of the people such as myself who were passionate, believed in Charlie, his vision and everything else, and were willing to work hard, were almost like taken advantage of in certain ways. And there were people who, for whatever reason, despite their inefficiency, were elevated, right? And it almost felt intentional. And I got to like grow very frustrated with that, right? Like the more that you notice inefficiency, I'm someone who can't stand inefficiency. And it just started to get to be too much. And also at the time, like you said, I like you said, Ian, I wasn't necessarily supportive of Charlie and his views of Israel. I wish that he pressed into the issue more. I just put out the other day, like I was one of the people involved in the production of Debate Night with Charlie Kirk early on, and back then, Tyler was originally saying, trolls with big followings would be good to have on. And so I naturally suggested the biggest troll at the time against Charlie, which was Nick Fuentes. And, if you think about it, his views on Israel were very controversial even back then. But the way that I saw it, was like, bro, if you think that Charlie's views are right, and you believe in free speech and debate, and you also need a good first episode, like this seems like a no-brainer. That was very quickly shut down. And again, like for Debate Night with Charlie Kirk, I feel like Charlie Kirk should have a say in who he wants to debate, but it was always filtered through these people that had been installed in his life. If it wasn't Tyler, it then became Andrew, and if it wasn't Andrew before that, it was this guy Connor. And so like there were always people that it seemed like were kind of put to be a filter, like between Charlie and whoever, right? And even as employees, like as someone who knew Charlie for 10 years from the beginning, I was made to feel that like, oh, if anyone goes to Charlie, all hell's gonna break loose. It's an act of subversion. Like you don't want to go to Charlie. It's just like this weird like culture that only certain people were allowed to have direct access to Charlie. And as someone who had been there for 9 years, and I was like 22, 23 at this point, I was like, bro, if I'm not gonna end up getting promoted or whatever, like yeah, I'm just gonna see myself out. so the way that that kind of transpired, I had already produced the FBI whistleblower piece, and part of that was where I got frustrated too. If you believe in truth and you believe in challenging the narrative and you believe in questioning the government, you would want to push out a whistleblower piece as far as you can, in my opinion. But they didn't put my documentary on YouTube, which again, okay, but the reasoning for it was because they didn't want their YouTube account to get struck. Because everything at Turning Point comes down to money, like they didn't want to risk losing the monetization of their YouTube, so they didn't put my documentary on YouTube, which is fine. It ended up running to 500,000 views in a week on Rumble and winning a Gold Telly Award. Like, great, I didn't need YouTube, but it just felt strange. Like, it felt like the motive didn't necessarily match the things that Charlie was saying all the time, right? But you know, things happen. I recognize that companies as they grow are going to shift, and so like I said a lot of what I'm saying right now in my exit interview, and to this day I don't know if any of it made its way to Charlie, but like just to give you guys perspective on like the kind of man Charlie was, right? I had literally gone into my exit interview, said everything I've said now and probably more, like just about how strange things had gotten there and why I was leaving. And I stepped out and actually ran into Charlie. He had just finished a workout. And I was like, hey man, can I get 2 minutes of your time real quick? And, just kind of told him, hey, it's my last day here, don't really agree with the direction that, the company's going at large, but like you as a person, I am forever grateful for you and everything you've done for me, and all the opportunities you've given me. Just wanted to thank you for that. And like, I will never stop believing in you as a person. And, he was very grateful for that. He was like, thank you. You've done so much for us. If you ever want to come back, you're more than welcome, yada, yada, yada. Like, again, like was very much this just like was Charlie believed in nuance, and like he was able to see past the political to the person, right? And it was not just about like the party lines or what you believe or don't believe. Like he was a human being at the end of the day, right? And that's what made the difference for me. And so like I never stopped believing in Charlie. Did I have my doubts and questions about the direction Turning Point was going? Certainly. And so I left to go do my own thing. I became a freelance music photographer, shot EDC Las Vegas for John Summit. Like, I went and did my own thing. And then the election rolled around. I left Turning Point USA in 2023. And then I rejoined the ecosystem as a contractor for Visual Impulse. In like May of 2024, I want to say was like the first contracted event I did with them. And then from there, just kind of slowly began getting integrated into the touring crew. So we did at least 30 or more of the college stop. I like lost count. I was on over 70 flights that year. Like literally just was not home basically for the entire second half of 2024 because it was the election. And from there I got to witness just like how much things had changed and how big Charlie had gotten and his influence, right? And it just like brought everything full circle for me. Like I really am forever grateful for that opportunity to have been present at almost every campus debate that we did in 2024 during the election, and then also to be able to run a broadcast camera at 5 rallies for the president, regardless of where we're at now, is just an incredible experience to be there, to be a part of that history, right? But I also just got to watch Charlie in his element every day for 3 hours, talking to kids, expressing himself. And so I just think it's hilarious when, we have these people who get up now like, oh, we don't know what Charlie would say. It's like, bro, there is so much footage of it. And also like some of us were there with him every day, like listening to what he said to these college kids. And like, I got to watch his mindset start to shift. Like we all know the Israel, like the cat's out of the bag on the Israel topic, and the young people want to know. We are very interested, and I think the more campuses Charlie went to, the more he kind of started to realize that, right? Even if he didn't say it publicly, like every campus we went to, somehow Israel got brought up. And it just seemed like over time he was starting to notice that like this is something that's not going away, and I need to start thinking seriously about it. And I think we started to see that. I don't think we got to see the end result of it. And personally, I think that is kind of a potential explanation for why we saw what we saw. Um, but we don't know, and a lot of that remains to be obviously seen. I do, however, just think it's interesting that, like, for a show and a group and a company that has pretty much been skeptical of every court case of the last like 10 years of national significance, and like I've put out a list of how many different things the Charlie Kirk show has called into question over the last 5 to 10 years. Like, it's just hilariously ironic to watch everybody in lockstep, like you said, just all of the Zionists just, oh no, we got to trust the state, like, oh, the evidence is there. It's like, what backwards world are we living in, where like you people did not question the state and narrative on every other instance of national like controversy? Like, what are we talking about here? You guys literally had a show called Thought Criminals, and now you're telling us to trust the state, and if we question it, like, you're going to blacklist us and block us. Like, who are you people? Like, this was like my biggest fear when I was at Turning Point. And it's like, it was just one of those things where, at 22, 23, I had all these feelings as like a frustrated young person trying to navigate the corporate world, right? I'm also a very passionate person. I believed in Charlie. I was willing to sacrifice my youth to help build this, right? And to help get him to where he is, to amplify his voice, to spread his vision of ultimately not just Republican loyalty and blind party politics, but like, no, like, this is the people versus the oligarchs, and like, this movement is different, right? That was the whole selling point of Charlie Kirk. Like, it's the people versus the oligarchs, not, oh, Republicans versus Democrats. Like, no, he may have used Republicans to like, get his points across in the same way Donald Trump used Republicans to sell MAGA. But like, what we are witnessing now is not what Charlie Kirk died for, in my opinion, or even lived for that much. Like, bro was willing to walk into the arena. His every single campus we went to, and I want to emphasize this, the first thing that was said was, disagreements come to the front of the line. Disagreements come to the front of the line. That was what he said at every school. Do the people at Turning Point welcome disagreements today? I just want to pose that question. Do they welcome disagreements? Do they openly say, please bring us? No, like, I have asked how many questions to Blake Neff since I've gone public. Has he responded to a single one? No. Has Andrew Colvett? He's blocked me. Tyler Bowyer, who I have known for 13 years, who I have texts calling me an OG. The minute I question anything, you're going to just block me, and then, in my opinion, potentially have me removed from my job at Maricopa County that I started 10 days before Charlie was killed. Like, I waited 9 months because I was afraid of political persecution and shit happening, right? Like, and then look what happened 2 weeks to the day after going public. I lost my job, right? So, like, there's so much to me that I think is sketchy about what happened, right? There are so many different avenues worth pursuing that Charlie himself would pursue if he was not the one sitting in that chair, right? And I just find it hilarious. It is, quite frankly, laughable how much these people are trying to get us to trust the state, to blindly just trust the evidence, when for the last 5 to 10 years, Charlie Kirk and that entire studio has done nothing but challenge the narrative and challenge the state. I don't care how baseless the accusations are. Charlie Kirk got on stage at SAS and accused Jeffrey Epstein of being a Mossad agent, quote, with no evidence to back it. He did not need evidence to throw accusations out. And so to accuse us of destroying his legacy for simply asking questions about your actions, which do not match the rhetoric that Turning Point had, built for the last 10 years, it's just funny as fuck, bro. Like, what are these people doing? Like, it's insane. And then to make the argument that, like, oh, Candace Owens is making money. Bro, Turning Point USA made billions, multiple billions of dollars since Charlie died. Multiple billions. I've said it now multiple times. I'm saying it publicly. Multiple billions. Okay? Like they are a machine now. So, like, take that information, do it the way you will, but like, I care a lot about this, bro. Like, Turning Point was my whole fucking life as a young person. I met this dude at 15 and I watched him bleed out at 26. Like, what else do I have? Like, it's just, this was everything to me. I was in this before anyone was, right? I met this kid when we were both kids, right? And we both grew into men in this movement, right? And so yeah, in a way, it is personal. I don't have any hard feelings. I'm very grateful I was never fucking promoted further in Turning Point. God bless. Like I'm so grateful for that, right? I feel like I am right where I was meant to be this entire time. So yeah, I mean that's a little taste of it. But yeah.
That's absolutely fascinating. And I'm kind of curious because the comments that you made there around how Charlie Kirk was open to any and all debate or argument on essentially any subject, right? He was an open book. He said, here's my position. Let's hear yours. Let's debate these and hash them out. What a stark contrast it is to how Turning Point USA is now treating any and all opposition either to the Iran war, Zionism, and or the Tyler Robinson narrative. I'm curious if you wouldn't mind kind of sharing a story just to give us a little bit of a feel of what it was like, because the way you just described the end of that presentation, talking about kind of growing up alongside Charlie Kirk, which is a wild thing to be able to say you have done, right? If you wouldn't mind, is there a kind of a personal story, or you mentioned the one where you just kind of ran across paths with him, right? That was kind of brief in nature, but were there any other moments that were in there that really stuck out in your mind that kind of exemplified who he was, not just on screen or in front of a debate audience, but maybe behind the curtain, just as a person, right? In maybe a more intimate setting, just with yourself.
Yeah, I mean, yes and no, not necessarily. Like, I mean, yes, I got so many different levels of exposure to him, and also not nearly as many as I would have liked to. It's very interesting. A few that stand out to me, like there was this time back in, I think it was 2016, um, that Turning Point had kind of put together a round table, like it was like a youth like fucking round table. I forget what the term was, but it was on the Sean Hannity show in Las Vegas, and they had sent out a bunch of activists from all over the Southwest to go kind of fill the seats. It was a youth town hall with the Trump family and Sean Hannity. And it was insane there to I had just kind of got connected to Turning Point and Charlie, and I think I'd met him like only a couple times before this, like 3 or 4 different times. And it'd been a couple months since we saw each other. And I got bussed out with a group of Turning Point staff at the time and some activists. Austin Smith was there, a couple other people. It's when I first met Austin Smith as well. And ended up behind Sean Hannity and the Trump family. It was like a photo of it I could send you. But afterwards, the set kind of broke and we're all kind of walking out. Charlie himself is like walking through Caesars, and I'm just like walking next to him. And again, this is a dude who's like, has hundreds of people around him, spots me out. And so he's like, "Oh, what's going on, Mitchell? How are you?" And it's just like every time, like anytime he saw me and just was very much like, "Hey, dude, how are you? How you doing?" Like, again, recognize the person that I was. There'd be times when we would have to get him to sign 50 books or so. This was like before we ended up buying like the book pen that signed books on his behalf. But like, we would have to find time to get Charlie to sign 50 to 100 books that we'd be sending to donors. And it was just like hilarious watching him like obviously sign the books, but like it was just like the least important thing in his day. And just those were the moments when it seemed like he got to kind of relax a little bit and would crack a couple jokes and just be himself. And I experienced that almost every day when we were touring together. Like anytime there was a funny, like, bro's humor was unmatched. Like, he was intelligent as hell. He was able to quote the Bible at any point in time, but like he was also witty. People don't give him enough credit for just how funny he was. And again, oftentimes I was on the front camera facing him, so like I got a lot of just like looks from Charlie, like direct, just like eyebrow raises and just like him being him. And he would crack jokes with me. And like there was this one time when some dude had a shirt on that said "Keep steak legal," and he just like shouted it out and was like, "That's gonna be my next motto, right, Mitchell?" And just like would always just kind of like riff off of me at times. And so those moments were just incredibly awesome, right? Just kind of behind everything else, still getting to see like the human being and the person that Charlie Kirk was, because every day he was slandered and attacked and had just complete falsehoods said about him, like to get to see the kind of man that he was, outside of all of that, and like in spite of all of that, like whether or not the cameras were rolling, I think is like part of what made him so easy to be supportive of and to believe in from the beginning, right? It's like he never changed. Like Charlie Kirk never changed who he was as a person. He was always the same, just passionate, he loved this country, loved what he did, loved the Lord, and God rest his soul. Like he did not deserve what happened to him. And so that's obviously why I'm also doing what I'm doing. I just feel like it's a betrayal. And there are so many other potential motivations that makes sense for silencing Charlie Kirk forever and co-opting the movement that he built and dragging us back politically. I think if you look from, a federal intelligence level, how the intelligence agencies have operated in the past, whether it's the Proud Boys, where we learned that I think like 40% of their people were federal agents, or even like the Black Panthers, right? Like American history is littered with examples of political movements being allowed to grow to a certain point while simultaneously being subverted by intelligence agencies, and then up until a point when that group or whatever becomes a threat to the institution or like democracy as it exists, the status quo, the Zionist control, whatever you want to call it, right? I think that they, create an event of mass trauma and chaos. And in the aftermath of that, they push forward whatever this new era is going to be, this new world order, as we described, right? So it's an interesting perspective to have, for sure.
And so on that, one kind of final question, then I want to open it up to everybody else. So on that, you mentioned kind of seeing him before Trump and Erica Kirk and all of these other things, and kind of getting to a point where they were surrounded by that level of, I guess you'd call it celebrity. Could you describe what you saw, the aftermath of that influence? And I'm kind of curious if you think that there was any part of Charlie Kirk that thought that the relationships with any of these people were perhaps not as genuine as they might seem, right? Did he kind of feel like a pawn being used by some kind of other force, or did he feel like that was a sincerely organic relationship?
He never expressed anything directly to me along either of those lines. So everything I'll say is just going to be like my opinion, my perspective of kind of what I observed and how I saw it all take place, right? I said it yesterday on the timeline. I'll say it again. Like pretty much everyone's career at Turning Point USA and the C4 Turning Point Action is made or broken by Tyler Bowyer. And I think kind of what we're witnessing, kind of how he's trying to control the narrative. Even, I unfollowed him on Instagram 5 months after I left the company, and he, got so offended he had to DM me and be like, "Hey, bro, why'd you unfollow me?" It's just like, that's weird. That's not like normal. I don't know. Like, just screams management. But anyways, to answer your question, like, I just I didn't understand a lot of it, right? Like, I got asked by Charlie's like day-to-day girl at the time. Her name was Sarah. She was like, "Hey," this was when I was interning for the Charlie Kirk show. She's like, "Hey, do you know anyone who like would be interested in like being Charlie's day-to-day guy, like, planning his travel, touring with him?" Like, this is before Mikey McCoy got brought in, and I was like, "Yeah, Sarah, obviously, like, I would love that. What do you think I'm doing here?" Like, um, and she was like, "Oh, well, you're in school, like, whatever." I was like, "Sarah, I will drop out of school right now. Like, that's the Charlie Kirk thing to do. Like, fuck school. Like, whatever. I'll do this tomorrow." And she just kind of laughed it off. And 2-3 weeks later, all of a sudden, Mikey McCoy's brought in, and like then Pastor Rob McCoy's brought in, and so from there, it's like post 2020, and Charlie's starting to be more outspoken in his faith, and that was another thing for me where like as a very passionate Christian, my faith is the most important thing in my life. Like, I'm going to be skeptical when, someone starts publicly speaking about Christ in a way that they haven't before. And, it was very new for Charlie to publicly be speaking as pro-Christian as he was. And that was a part of me where I was like, is he doing this for, political points, or does he actually believe what he's saying? And at first, I mean, I'll be honest, I didn't necessarily think that it was genuine. It wasn't until I got on tour with him I literally had an out of body experience where, I had been in the ecosystem for 10 years plus at that point. I had listened to so much Charlie Kirk that like, it eventually kind of you start to tune out some of it. But there was this day we were at a tabling and, Charlie was again, just as he did every time, just riffing with the Bible off the cuff, off the top of his head. And I realized at that point that like this man was more than just like, a political operative or a political spokesperson. Like this dude really like was pretty much like a modern day preacher. Like he was going around the country preaching the gospel simultaneously, with a political backing behind it. But more importantly, like he was reaching broken souls. He was reaching the lost. And like the amount of stories we heard, the amount of people who came up and just shared personal stories of how they had chosen life instead of aborting, or just like the conversations that were being had were so much higher than Democrat versus Republican, this stupid two-party nonsense. Like it was such a spiritual experience that to see him operating in that way, confirmed all of my doubts that I once had about his faith. Like I saw him live his faith out more than anyone who in Turning Point, in my opinion, claims to be a Christian. Or like the Charlie Kirk lived that out every day. He said disagreements come to the front of the line, let's hash it out. And they killed him for that ultimately. Sorry, I know I got sidetracked there a little bit. But like I watched people slowly get installed over time that now conveniently are the ones running the show. And again, I think it all goes back to Tyler Bowyer being like the hand in everything. And he's been there from the beginning, just like I was, right? Like again, he had that role from the beginning. And the way that I see it, like again, I haven't seen this talked about much, right? But like Charlie Kirk was a kid when he got started in this. He was 17, 18 years old, right? When he first kind of kicked off Turning Point. And he was immediately surrounded with political money, right? Zionist money, whatever you want to call it. And I think to think that, like, don't get me wrong, Charlie Kirk was one of the most intelligent men and one of the most brilliant men that will ever walk this planet, right? But like to think that someone as young as he got involved in politics could not have been like, subverted or inundated with malicious people who he thought had his best interest at heart, I don't think is necessarily outside of the realm of possibility, right? When we look at history and we look at what's happened and we look at mutinies that have taken place and betrayals, right? And how we know intelligence agencies work, right? They don't think in 4-year political cycles. They think in 10, 20, 30, 50-year time spans because they have democracy to preserve, right? It's not about Republican it's like, dude, the next 4 elections are probably already decided by these guys, right? And like that's what people don't realize. So I watched people get thrown into the mix that just like I didn't understand why they were there, and then I watched them start to kind of filter Charlie and pull him kind of away and isolate him from the Turning Point that he had built, which was his baby, right? Turning Point USA was his baby. And I think that Charlie was a guy who was able to prioritize things very well, right? He had a mission, and that mission was to, preserve Western democracy, to, change America fundamentally. And the way that he saw that best, achieved was through Donald Trump. And so I think that he put his all into that after the 2020 election because he realized the impact he had. That's why I love that video of him speaking about how it's, the people versus the oligarchs, because you can see it in his face. Like it's what he believes. He's like, he can't contain his smile because he just realizes like, this is what it's about. Right. And so like to just watch it shift away from all of that because of all of these people that Tyler Bowyer has allowed to be there. Right. Like is just questionable to me. I have questions. It doesn't make sense, right? When you compare the kind of guy that Charlie was, the kind of man that he was, the things that he stood for and lived out every day with what Turning Point USA, the entity and its spokespeople are saying. And even just like all the way up to the administration, like it is a complete 180, right? And so there's so much there for them to just try and push the lone shooter narrative. I think is just hilarious. It's Goislop.
Well, I very much agree with that presumption, and going all the way back to the beginning of this whole narrative, the thing that stood out to me the most wasn't let's say, an obvious piece of evidence that I could point to say, well, obviously Israel did it. But when you had the likes of not only the influencers but also the Israeli government coming out and saying, "Nope, we had nothing to do with any of this," it's like, well, that looks really weird. I'm not sure if you have any thoughts on that, Artifacts.
No, I mean, bro, come on, dude. Like, the alarms went off day one, right? Like, the minute I got I was sitting in my office. I was 10 days into my new job. They knew I had worked for Turning Point before this, and so like, it obviously pulled me out entirely of everything I was doing. But like, went home, started watching the news. Within like less than an hour, Netanyahu's giving a speech on how he did not kill Charlie Kirk, and he's quoting Goebbels. Like, what are we living through, guys? Simultaneously, 2 days prior, Charlie Kirk went on air and not only told Ben Shapiro that the Jews run the media, whether or not he was joking. Brother, do you not realize how many ears and eyes Charlie Kirk had on him at that point? He was at the peak of his fame. He had just got Trump elected. Like, Charlie Kirk was trending on Reels practically every day, bro. These videos were going viral. So to have someone with as large of an audience as Charlie had, that was not just like, a Ted Cruz who's very clearly only a Republican Zionist shill, like, and only pulls a certain amount of the party and the population. Charlie was able to break past that. He was a real threat to the establishment. He was a threat to everybody in Washington. He was also a threat to everybody in Turning Point USA who probably had an inflated position or a director role that wasn't really doing anything and was making way more money than they probably should have been, right? And so I think that like the two do go hand in hand, to where like there was so much, threat that Charlie posed to not only the Zionist narrative, to not only like the Israeli government. If you go back and watch the Dave Smith debate I put up, right? Like, he was slowly, very slowly, and very tactfully, I will give him credit, very tactfully approaching the Israel issue. Like, and it's part of what brought me back to like, again, I left Turning Point because I felt like it wasn't being addressed in the way it should have been, right? And it now seems like it was being controlled by people that were put in Charlie's life intentionally, right? And they're now the ones running the show. But in hindsight, watching Charlie get to interact with college kids every day, coupled with the videos we have from SAS, where, he accused Epstein of being a Mossad agent, where he platforms Dave Smith, and the audience is basically questioning and supporting, what Dave Smith is saying about we should not blindly back Israel. You have Charlie getting on with Megyn Kelly, explaining practice. Fucking feels like a cry for help, bro. He's like, the Jewish donors are calling me an anti-Semite. Like, Megan, I've defended them for the last 10 years. And the minute I question them, like, it's like the same thing Tyler did to me, bro. It's like the minute I question them, they're gonna call me an anti-Semite. Like what? And then you couple that with the Ben Shapiro podcast, like a day or two later, the texts that have come out where he's expressed desire to leave the Israel lobby. Like, these people act like these don't exist, like they didn't happen. And so again, I go back to the words that Charlie said while on tour for JFK. It's like, I think we are all smart enough to know that this is more than just a lone shooter, right? Like how fucking retarded do you think we are at Turning Point? I'm sorry. Like, Charlie Kirk spent 10 years telling us to question the narrative. What did he ask about JFK? Who benefited the most? Who benefited the most from JFK? Okay, let's apply that same question here. Who benefited the most from Charlie Kirk's death? It's not Candace Owens. Did she benefit? For sure, because she cares about him. She fucking cares about
No,
him. Like,
it's apparently you. You are
Oh my God! Don't interrupt,
benefiting
sir.
from Charlie Kirk.
I'm just dropping him. Go for it, Artifacts.
it's just like, again, that's like to think that I am like gaining the most out of this is just insane. Like, I've lost my job for this. Like, whatever, dude. Go fuck yourself. Like, Turning Point has made billions of dollars. They set up merch, and Erica Kirk is on video celebrating how many people were in attendance. Like, that is morbid and not normal. And like, anyone who tries to normalize it is weird, in my opinion. Like, it's just weird, right? It feels abnormal. It rubs the human soul the wrong way. Like, and again, you don't need to like be a doctor or like bro, you just feel it in your soul. It's the Holy Spirit speaking to you. Like, it's not normal. These people are saying one thing and doing another, right? So again, I apply the same question. So I'm gonna go back before you interrupt me. Like, who benefited the most from Charlie Kirk's death, right? Let's trace this. Did anyone really know who Blake Neff was or Andrew Koval? Yeah, sure. Like, I did, right? I was in the ecosystem. I knew who these people were. Did I like them? No. I always thought these people were sus. I thought they moved in weird ways. They were shady figures. They just like came out of nowhere and all of a sudden were in Charlie's like direct worldview every day. Like how does that happen? Who makes that happen? Who's making these calls, right? These were all questions I had at the time. It all kind of seems to make sense to me now in hindsight. But again, if you look at who benefited the most and you apply that question, there's a reason Turning Point doesn't want to answer it, bro. They're the ones who benefited the most. Like, it's so transparent and see-through that, like, the fact that we're even here, like, the intelligence agencies got what the fuck they wanted, bro. We had, like, Charlie was like the best chance we've had, in my opinion, since JFK, of actually making a change in this country and separating it from the Zionist movement, of actually putting American people first for the first time ever, right? And what did we watch? Like, yeah, we got Trump elected, great. It was supposed to be a different this time. Charlie was fucking in Washington, like in Trump's ear, bro, trying to talk this dude out of war. Like, he's probably the only person in our country doing that, because we've seen how these fucking neocons operate once they get power back. It's just, oh, all right, we're back to the same old shit. Like, it was the first time, in my opinion, that the intelligence agencies felt threatened from like JFK. And so we're now seeing what happened, right? We're now being slowly marched back into this like weird Republican Democrat talk that, like, again, 9 months ago, what happened? Like, what we did, we all just forget what we just came out of? Like, why do we need to win the next election in 2028? Like, we just gave you guys power and you didn't do shit with it. And not only that, like allegedly the left executed your strongest guy. You had a divine mandate to go fucking, unleash whatever on the left in this country, and you didn't do shit except, define Antifa as a terrorist organization. Okay, cool. Like, what does that do? Like, who? Like, great. And now you're just trying to pin it on Tyler Robinson and just dust your hands and walk away with billions of dollars. Like, that's a grift and a scam. I'm gonna call it like I see it. I'm gonna keep it a buck. That's how I've always been. So I don't know. Like, again, if you think I benefited, like, please show me. Like, yeah, I'm gonna write a book because I have so much more I want to say, and it probably sounds crazy coming out all at once. And like, yeah, my life has been, kind of ruined because of this. But like, bro, this was all I had. I'm sorry that I fucking care. Like, you're not gonna make me stop caring.
Thanks. And what are your thoughts on Erica Kirk? Do you think, like, how was it before and the change that is now, and I don't know, like everything. It's very weird.
It's very weird. It doesn't. I was very concerned about what's happening, and like, it's like, damn, I was right from the day it happened. Like, this was my fear all along when I saw Charlie get shot. I was just like, damn, like, that's it. And like, there is, I think I met Erica once or twice, right? She was not really ever around when I was there.
So she wasn't that involved, and now they are making it that she was like super involved all the time.
Yeah, no, she was not involved at all. Like, there was, again, unless on like the back end, there's like, whatever. But there's like one photo of me, I think, that exists with Charlie and Erica. It's from the, I think, 12-year anniversary celebration, which they also kind of had as like a wedding celebration for staff and friends and close family. It's like, there's a photo that exists. I don't have it. Someone at Turning Point allegedly has it. They haven't sent it to me. I've asked them 10 times. They're not going to at this point, I doubt. But I did meet her once, at least that I can remember. But like, she was not heavily involved necessarily. Oh, I did actually meet her a second. Weirdly enough, I was eating dinner at Silverleaf one time, and I ran into Charlie and Erica. They were having dinner together, and like, this was after I had left Turning Point. This is another. I just remembered this. Wow, another. You asked for like moments. Like, again, I had just ran into Charlie after not seeing him for like 8 months, and just chatted for like 5 minutes as a human. Like, that shit happened all the time. It was so weird. But no, back to Erica. Like, she had her own side stuff going on. I mean, if you guys have looked into, she had like Proclaim Streetwear and, Bible and 365 and all this kind of stuff. But like, I do just want to, like, I don't know. There's a trend that I've noticed with women, primarily in the conservative movement, and it's just like it seems like conservative influencers becoming a conservative influencer is like the final form for a midfoid, is what I keep saying, right? It's like once you've ran through everything else, once you've failed reality TV, once you've failed to be a radio show host, like in Alex Clark's case, like it's like you just end up in this ecosystem where, like, if you have a relatively hot face, like, boomers are going to blindly clap along and like send you the money that they should be sending to their kids' retirement. Like, it's a really weird system, right? And so the more that we've learned about Erica's background, it screams that kind of pattern to me. I think it's weird how deeply connected she was to Trump before she even met Charlie. I think it's suspicious how they met in Israel. I think what is the most suspicious, though, again, we talk about again, I think Tyler Bowyer is a federal agent or has been working with the government in some capacity, because like it just doesn't make sense how he connected all of these people to Charlie, including Erica, right? Like, the story goes, allegedly, like, Tyler wanted Charlie to interview Erica, and then Charlie fell in love. Again, like, we have to be realists here and think about the kind of person Charlie Kirk was, who had been isolated in politics and focused on, fundraising and all this kind of stuff his whole life. He's an innocent Christian man, like, had expressed struggles with pornography on debate night before. Like, he was very open about this kind of stuff, right? So to think that, like, he could not have been honeypotted by a beautiful blonde woman that Tyler had put in directly in front of him, that, she had also met conveniently in Israel before this. Like, it just feels like too much is there to not ask questions. And so then it's like, you just go back to the principle of Charlie, like, question, like, it's what so I don't know. Like, she was never around close enough really to like get a perspective or a feel on her. But I will say this, like, having spoken with former staff members who knew her better than I did, they have expressed, they don't recognize that woman who's on stage. Like, they're like, this is not the Erica that I knew for 10 years, but like, she seems different. She seems like she's changed. So that's like, that's not me. I never knew her like that, but even people who knew her and worked for Turning Point at the same time I did have said that, like, she doesn't even seem like the same person she was when I knew her. So I don't know. It's there's a lot there. And I think to like the whole forgiveness thing is so interesting to me, right? Like, I'm a Christian, and I don't know if I could forgive somebody who assassinated my husband in less than like a month, right? It challenges a lot, kind of breaks your brain. And then when you contrast that with how she responded to people asking questions about her, and Turning Point and whatever else, like, it feels very defensive, and it does not necessarily feel like Charlie, where he said, we welcome disagreements. Like, if you are a Christian and you believe in truth, you should at least be willing to like go out there and talk about it, especially if you're willing to forgive your husband's assassin. Like, to not forgive people who are simply curious about whether or not you may or may not be involved in like the largest political assassination in American history is like insane. But again, we're living in the upside down apparently, and if you're not a Zio-cuck, like, you're just shunned from society. I don't know, like again, this issue's not going away, and it's like one of those things. It's like, we can either address the elephant in the room, or we can wait until this shit pops. We've kind of already seen what happens when we wait that long. It's like, do you guys really want to go down that path again? I have a whole perspective on this. I'm going to be talking about it in an upcoming book I'm writing. The working title is Gambling, Gooning, and Goyslop, The Decline of the American Male. So stay tuned for that. I'm very excited to trace Reconstruction in Germany to the assassination of Charlie Kirk. I have a whole timeline and theory. So stay tuned. I will be breaking it down in much more detail.
Oh my
And
God.
obviously, if you
And
have
that was an
not
excellent
seen,
topic for a book.
yeah, and obviously, if you haven't
Am I
watched
still
my
here?
FBI documentary, go watch that,
Wait.
because I feel like back in 2022, and I can even end with this. Like, I did produce an FBI whistleblower piece. And I interviewed an FBI agent, former FBI agent, and he looks me in the eye and says, if you don't think that executive leaders like Charlie Kirk, or even you yourself, looks me dead in the eye, you yourself are being monitored by the FBI, like, you're not listening to everything I've been saying, right? And so that was in 2022. And I think that, like, if we look at what's happened since, right? We also now know that Graham Allen was operating as a federal agent, is operating as a federal agent. Jack Posobiec is a retired Navy intel officer. Like, there's already like potential feds, confirmed feds. Like, so again, if 40% of the Proud Boys were feds, like, what percent of Turning Point USA are federal agents? You know, it's a question I have. And I think if, history is our judge, like, we're going to end up seeing a lot more come out than is currently present. But maybe the state will win. I don't know. We'll see.
And what are your thoughts on the book of the Shabbat Shalom book, whatever it's, you know what I'm talking about?
What do you mean? The Zohar books?
The Charlie Kirk book that came out posthumously, which was
Oh, yeah, yeah,
all
yeah.
about
It's
Zionism.
very sus.
I think that like they kind of finished the book for him potentially. I don't know. I feel like he was expressing that he wasn't even done with the book with Megyn Kelly a couple days before his death, right? Unless I'm misremembering that. But yeah, I mean, I also think that like if we've seen just kind of the way that they've operated since, I don't think it would necessarily be too much to question whether or not they just kind of finished what he was writing and pushed it out. I don't know. There's so much there. The book is kind of like the least of my concerns, to be honest. Like it's just probably like another thing they're using to make money. So I don't know. Like it is what it is at this point.
All right. No, this
Well,
this is
very
amazing. Yeah, go for it. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, very well stated. And I know there's a number of questions, and I'd love to start with some initial thoughts from Mads. If there's anything maybe that was glanced over or that you'd like to add in as color, and then we can go over to Mr. Tom who has his hand up.
No, thanks. Just a couple of questions that I have. As far as you mentioned the Zohar, and I saw that on your timeline as well. Did you see like a big influence, Israeli influence, in the corporate offices? Did you see a lot of tiny hats or people walking through tunnels and things like that while you were in the office or anything like that?
There were no like secret tunnels or escape hatches that led directly to Jerusalem. However, I will say this: like Turning Point USA had a very strong Jewish influence from the beginning. Like they had a lot of Judeo-Christian, I don't know, spokespeople that would come speak. You know, they have sent a couple delegations to Israel. I actually, I don't even really want to say this out loud, but I'll say, like, I went to Israel in 2017 with Turning Point. I have photos from the trip. It was with a Christian group called Passages. They sponsored the trip. Turning Point did for I think like a handful of their top activists, and I was one of them at the time. And I think like they sent 30 or 40 of us out there to Israel. It was a 10-day trip. Got to go to the Knesset and everything. Got to go to the Syrian border and the old city of Jerusalem, Bethlehem. Did everything. Like it was a great trip, and I got to see it all from the perspective of a Christian lens. But oddly enough, like I fucking there's a photo of me touching the wall, which one day is probably going to be my get out of jail free card. Like, but like that photo
Oh
exists,
no!
and
Oh
like,
no!
well, I'm explaining the background. I'm explaining the background of it, right? Because like,
Disregard everything you've heard in this space. I
yeah, right,
apologize, everybody.
right. No, so like this is again like the point I'm making is like, at a very young age, I was sent to Israel by Turning Point USA.
Wait, I have to ask, when you touched the wall, did you look left and right and see people moving their hips in weird ways as they touched the wall?
I didn't see that, but like,
But
bro,
how does it happen? Like, do they tell you like go stand there and like touch it, and I'll take a picture? Like how
it
is
is very much like, yeah, it does feel like a fucking humiliation ritual, like in hindsight. It dead ass does. Like I look at the photo and it's so bad you'd think AI made it. Like I can't describe it. Like it's I didn't even want to say that. Like, but again, like it happened. It's part of the story, and it matters because like Turning Point had sent multiple delegations of young people to Israel. And I think that's an important point because it's not really talked about. They also had a fuck, I forget what it was. There was like a like a department. There was a time when like they were trying to start like an Israeli part of 24. I think the chick's name was Sophia Witt, and she was like the pro-Jewish conservative kind of ambassador for Turning Point. So that was a pretty strong influence early on that I saw. And then as Charlie entered his like Christian conservative phase in 2020, it wasn't as like, talked about openly necessarily. There was a couple trips to Israel still made. They were still simultaneously like doing pro-Israeli documentaries. Like I remember at the time, Isabel Brown was sent to Israel to make a whole documentary on like the Holy War, I think, or something like that. And at the time, it felt like such a puff piece for Israel. I was like, what the fuck is this? Like this just it didn't feel like it was actually coming at it with a critical lens. It felt very much like just some Zog slop, like we're gonna pat the Jews on the back. And that was something that I was always critical of. Like openly, I was playing the time when Kanye West went on Alex Jones with Nick Fuentes, and they were talking about Bibi Netanyahu. Like I was playing that openly from my desk in the office, which I don't think executives were too fond of at the time, right? So it's just like I probably got pinned as like a question asker or a noticer, right? And that's why I never got promoted. But like whatever, it is what it is. This isn't about that shit. This is about Charlie. But yeah, like the Judeo-Christian arc was always present. I mean, Ben Shapiro was a speaker from early on, right? But then we got to watch how that conversation and those questions began to evolve over time, right? And we're still in that process right now. This itself is a part of that. Charlie unfortunately didn't get to see his questions through all the way to the end, but I think that like, when we look at everything, Netanyahu putting a video out minutes of the Shlomo Pearl poster going up. Like, bro, when I saw that, I was just like, bro, okay. All right. They really think the Goyim are dumb. Like this is just insane. Coupled with then what's happened with Thomas Massey, who was a pretty much lifelong friend of Charlie Kirk as long as they've been in politics together. Like Charlie Kirk described Thomas Massey as one of his favorite, politicians, whatever. Like, and the same thing with Candace Owens. Like, these people, Blake and Andrew, can say what they want, bro. They were inserted in Charlie's life at the peak of his rise. They were not there in the early days. They were not there when it was not cool to be a conservative. So, like, again, you came in when it was easy. You had nothing to lose. You gained everything in the process. Look at people like myself who have lost everything for this, who never shifted who they were, who, like, again, I'm not getting paid $7,000 from fucking Israel. Like I'm not making money off of this. I'm definitely not getting paid by Turning Point anymore. Like I definitely have shot myself in the foot as far as like conservative politics is concerned. Like why do you think I just got fired from Maricopa County? I was like 20. I'm 27 years old and I'm a video editor. And I pose that much of a threat that you feel the need to punish me. Like it's just the whole thing is insane. The size of the system and then like the power that they have that we're up against, unfortunately. But that's where it's like we have to keep asking these questions. The minute we stop is the minute we lose our freedom. And so that's where I'll ask publicly, like Blake, Andrew, Tyler, like, do you guys believe in freedom or do you not? Because if you don't believe in freedom, it makes sense why you want us to stop asking questions. If you do ultimately believe in freedom, like you gotta let us ask our questions, bro. Like you can't just force feed us the Fed slop and also be like, oh yeah, we believe in freedom. Like, no, you don't.
Joanne, I just wanted to check your audio. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm still here, but I think it's either him glitching or me glitching. I don't know. Am I here?
Understood. You want me to recycle you while we go to Tom? I will take that as a big yes. Let me. I'll recycle Joanne, but Tom, jump in if you had a question for our guest speaker here.
Yeah, Ian, appreciate it. So I have a couple of questions, but I'll limit it to two. And before that, I just want to say really quickly that unfortunately, we don't have two parties in the United States of America. What we have is a uniparty, a Jewish-run uniparty. And all the people who are brought into politics to participate in that system, who, as I understand it, for the most part, know they have to play that game and they're part of it. They're brought in to participate in the system as a corrupted system. And then you have random people that end up in there somehow that are essentially sidelined throughout their tenure until people can figure out how to get them out of politics. And that's it. That's the state of politics in the United States of America right now. And I think what we as US citizens over the course of the last few months have all come to learn is that all of our institutions, government agencies, and sectors of the economy have been subverted and corrupted by left-wing Bolshevik Jews and right-wing Zionist Jews playing a brilliant political shell game that kind of ensures that the interests of organized world Jewry is intended to ensure that the interests of organized world Jewry are advanced, not in spite of, but as a result of the very clever dynamism involved in the illusion of choice brought about by the two-party system scam. So one of the things I wanted to ask you, brother, is, you mentioned that when you were on the set, you would witness these moments where you described it the following way: the set kind of broke. And I took that to mean a certain thing. Does that essentially mean the moment when, okay, we're no longer playing for the cameras? This is how we are in real life. And you see the drastic shift between the inauthentic behavior that you see on camera and then a maybe more authentic or indicative of what people are about interaction when the cameras are off. Can you describe kind of, am I right in my in my understanding of what you meant by that? And can you describe kind of what bizarre things you noticed that you might have found unsettling along the lines of the sort of observations that you, I assume, made that led to the question that I just asked you? Did you see a lot of that? And what was the most disconcerting instance in which you saw that sort of interaction take place that indicated that Charlie was out of his depth in terms of being surrounded by people that were pretending to be his friends, but were really just kind of his handlers?
Yeah, for sure. I agree with everything you said. Like, I think Charlie's death proves more than anything that yeah, the two-party system is a scam. Like, MAGA was a psyop, and unfortunately, they used Charlie's innocence and brilliance to secure their power. And the minute that they realized he was going to be the threat to that, against the neocon plan of launching another war in the Middle East and not delivering on the promises that he made, like, they did what they do with everyone. They dispose of them, they silence them, whatever, right? So I think, yeah, you're 100% correct. I couldn't have put it better. And that's kind of what I'm going to be tracing in my book. So, like, I thank you for making those points. As far as the question you asked, yes, that was, again, something I was trying to amplify. I may not have said it. So, like, I think we saw a glimpse of this with that Riley Gaines video that leaked a couple weeks ago. I don't know if you guys recall that, where she's basically being asked, like, to be told what she thinks, what she, believes, etc., for the sake of the ad or whatever, right? And, like, that was very common. Like, a lot of people, somehow landed in a viral position for whatever the case may be, or were elevated or were given shows. Like, I was on Alex Clark's show when we would record, and it's like, these people are making insane amounts of money as personalities, I'll call it, right, as spokesmen, as entertainers. And we know that all the world is a stage, right? Like that much has been confirmed. So yeah, you're right. Like the element of being sidelined or used and then eventually sidelined once they realize that you're actually not just like a blind Zionist loyalist is the best way I could describe it, right? And to then simultaneously watch people who, yeah, like, are essentially paid actors, right, that are operating in a way that they're trying to convince you that they're just like you, they're just like the average American, they just happen to wind up here due to, like, hard work and dedication and their strong conservative beliefs. Like, that's a load of fucking bullshit. Like, everything is manipulated, everything is controlled. Again, like, no one was allowed. Like, everyone's career is made or broken by Tyler Bowyer in that company, from influencers to fucking day-to-day staffers, pretty much, right? And if not him, it was filtered through somebody that he had put into place, right? And again, it's like they build this cult of loyalty and this cult of personality, that for me, as an OG, as a day oneer, was always about Charlie Kirk himself, right? And like the things that he stood for and believed, the kind of man that he was, the integrity with which he lived his life, not like the corporate behemoth election machine greater than CPAC beast that Turning Point now is, right? Because now it very clearly obviously doesn't welcome disagreement either. So yeah, like, to watch people who, generally speaking, are not the most intelligent, I'll say, like, be the ones responsible for kind of directing the mission of the movement, the party, whatever you want to call it, like, being the mouthpieces. um it was always a cause of concern for me. I'm like, why are these guys the ones going on Fox News when they are literally going to Charlie Kirk 5 minutes before they're hit, and they're like, Charlie, like, prep me, what should I say? Right. And like that happened so many times, more often than you would think, right? So it's like, how many people here actually believe the things they're saying, or are they just saying it because they happen to be in a position where it's financially lucrative for them? And I think that, like, what we're witnessing right now, like everybody associated with Turning Point, like not even being willing to like challenge the narrative or challenge the state in the way that Charlie Kirk himself did relentlessly, kind of proves that point better than anything. I mean, we're witnessing. I just watched it today when Pierre Wilson, like, or whatever his last name is, like 1.2 thousand followers, puts out a whole tweet about how, you know, Erica Kirk is the best human being on the planet. And it's like, bro, where did you come from? Like, who? Like, and it has, you know, 200,000 like impressions. Like, it is very much a system that is being funded. There's very clearly money, a lot of money behind this, right? And I think that, like, if I'll say this too. I think that, like, if Charlie Kirk was able to complete the Doge audit that he called, I think that a lot of people's careers would like have been at stake. I think that a lot of people would have lost their jobs because Charlie was a fiscal conservative. He was fiscally responsible. He didn't just believe in endlessly blowing money. It was never about the DC perks for him. It was never about the money. Like, and so I think that those who were in the position of power to protect, again, the institution that Turning Point had become, potentially may have made a call or a choice that, you know, protected those interests. I don't know. I think that that theory and all the potential other theories make a whole hell of a lot more sense than a random 20-year-old who was horny one day, woke up and wanted to go, you know, off the leading voice on the right. It just like, bro, like I can see it for sure, but like it doesn't make sense, right? And if that's what you guys believe, then like why did the Trump administration do nothing to combat the left in the aftermath? Like we have seen no results really, and we're not getting anything that we were promised out of this. So it just feels like one awful episode of some horror movie that I can't wake up from. Like it's so dystopian to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Really quick follow-up question, if that's all right with Joanne and
Go
Ian.
for it, Tom.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, thanks. So, you mentioned how Tyler Bowyer seemed to be the individual who was in charge of essentially staffing TPUSA. I've come to notice the same thing happening in a lot of media ecosystems. As an outsider, but still kind of watching what's taking place, is that the way all of media is run? Are they these gatekeeping managers that essentially determine who can and who can't participate in media, and then hire people based on whatever determinations they're instructed to prioritize? And do you have an idea as to who's part of the overarching power structure that makes the calls pertaining to who can be the manager that selects, for example, who can be all of the influencers in the manosphere, who can be all of the influencers on the left, who can be all of the influencers in TPUSA? Because it seems to me that that's exactly how US media is managed. Am I correct? Or maybe it's slightly different, or do you not really have an
Yeah, I
understanding on
mean,
that?
I don't know if I have like a direct understanding of it. I'll give you kind of my perspective, right? Like, obviously, I think like for all of what we're witnessing to be managed by like one person, Tyler Boyer, for instance, I think is you know, quite frankly impossible. But like I think that you know, over time, people have fallen into like positions of power and influence, and found ways to manifest that and use it and to their benefit. You know, like maybe manipulate institutions or whatever the case may be. I think that, like, if we look at Hollywood, for example, and the kind of like things that we know about like the Harvey Weinstein tactics that were used, and then we also kind of apply the truths that we've learned from the Epstein files. It's like there is clearly a much larger force at work here than just like, you know, political operatives, right? I think that like this goes back to Babylonian days. I think that like if you trace the Rothschilds back, like their lineage, like we are literally dealing with like ancient Sumerian demons. Like, and again, to state that in plain fact, I think we need to be doing more of, because like we are in a spiritual war. Like Charlie Kirk showed us that again. Like Erica Kirk said, evil showed its face. Yes, but we're also seeing a new face of evil manifested in different ways, and it's very deceptive, and it's very evil. And I think that, unfortunately, due to Protestant Reformation, right, I think that a lot of Christians have been deceived. A lot of good-hearted, faithful Christians who love the Lord have been deceived into worshiping a cult of personality, and like honestly like a cult of just Zionism and a blind kind of subversion of the Christian faith, and it's so evil because it is, directly benefiting the ones who killed Christ, right? And so I think that if we know how Satan operates from the Bible, he appears to us as a friend and everything else. It's exactly what's happened with the Protestant Reformation. There is clear instructions in the Bible on how to do church, and I'll tell you very frankly, it's not what is happening on most Sundays across the country in evangelical circles. It's just not. Um, so I think that, like, yeah, the network of Jewish and Zionist control, it touches every factor of society. I mean, we look at how they were geofencing churches, right, and monitoring cell phones. That information came out recently, and then you look at how I think Turning Point was also geofencing and tracking people's locations at their memorial. It's just like the same tactics are being utilized elsewhere, and like it's just very interesting. It's like that's how they knew how many people were in attendance, right? Like how do you think they got their numbers? It's like that they had to pull it somehow. So I don't know. I don't have a direct perspective on, like, how that machine operates necessarily, but like as someone who was in the inside, I felt it from 22, 23. It's why I left. It didn't make sense to me then. Like I said, like I always wondered what I did wrong, like who I pissed off, who I didn't do enough for to be welcomed into that fold, right? And the way that you've said it, it's clear what it comes down to. It comes down to my inability to just blindly trust Israel and be a Zionist, right? And also just like relentlessly ask questions for the sake of the truth. And like again, if ultimately you are illegitimately in power or you're trying to concede your intentions, you're not going to like questions. So I don't know. I guess that doesn't really fully answer your question, but like I think that if we treat politics as like a mini Hollywood, which it basically is, right? Like and honestly, it might be a bigger Hollywood. I think there's probably more money in politics than there is in Hollywood, quite frankly. I just don't think it's talked about. And there's a lot of dark money, there's a lot of shady money. Like the amount of like subcontracted companies that are associated with the TPUSA ecosystem is like insane. Many of these like LLCs are created by some of the same people who work at Turning Point. Like there's so much sketchy shit there that is just not really public, and you become privy to the information by being associated with it. And so it's like, again, that's how they build this cult of personality and loyalty. It's like, bro, I don't think people are happy I'm talking. There's a reason Tyler Bowyer, Andrew Colvett have both blocked me and not responded to a single thing I've said, because I'm making valid points and they know it, right? And like if I was not making valid points, they would refute them, but they're not. So it's like that again. Why? Just answer the question. Why? Why am I now having investors reach out to me from with photographic evidence of tours that they were given back not even 6 months ago, whatever, like with photos of Jewish mysticism in a bookshelf that says "For Charlie." It's like it's time stamped. There's other photos of the tour they were given. Like I know it's real, right? So like, why are they reaching out to me? Is Stacey Sheridan not doing her job as director of development? Like, why is she at the courthouse? Is she a federal asset? Is she managing the chaos? Like, how deep does this shit go? We don't know. And I pray we find out, right? It's, Charlie always said his death was going to change the world. And I think we're seeing that. I think these people got what they wanted in the short term. But like, damn, I feel like they overplayed their hand. And maybe I'm wrong about it. Again, it could be that some random dude woke up one day and was just like, I'm gonna go off Charlie Kirk today. But like the campus also being in a menorah, and like Charlie Kirk turning on Israel over the last kind of 6 months to a year, and simultaneously the Zog machine marching in lockstep order, bro. It's so fucking obvious. Like, and again, I think that goes to show how close we are to actually changing things, because this is like a last ditch effort. Like again, like these people, like they're lashing out. They feel scared. They know they're scared. They know we are awake to this, right? And so like, don't be afraid to speak up. Like, fear is not from the Lord. All right? Like, remember that. Our Lord does not, it is not, fear is not from the Lord. If you believe in our Lord, fear is not from the Lord. So that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. Like, I believe, when I put out the first tweet I did against Tyler, like, I had no plan on doing it. I had intentionally stayed off Twitter for like the last 6 months because I knew that I was going to obsess over it, right? I was going to get involved. Because I care. I'm just that type of person. That's how I'm wired, right? Like, I intentionally kind of avoided it. Like, I put my head in the sand. And I looked on Twitter during WLS and I saw Tyler talking about how 14 years ago, no one remembered the start of Turning Point and it was yada yada yada. And it's just like this such inflated, like it waters down everything that Charlie Kirk stood for. And you're just trying to make it like a Republican election machine. And like, great, yes, like Charlie definitely cared about elections. I'm not saying he didn't, right? But like that was not his end all be all. His end all be all was something so much higher than that. It was we the people versus the oligarchs. And when you break that conflict down is when it starts to get spiritual and you get into the elements of banks that were being talked about at the start, like and just shit like that. So like, you know, we're close and we have to keep the pressure on. And like I put out a tweet yesterday. I'm like, these people are talking about Candace so much, like you know, TPUSA is probably gonna call Bibi Netanyahu and fucking like, you know, order a false flag. Like that's just kind of where I feel like we're at. Like it's sarcasm, but it's also not, right? We have to be realists about our history and the things that we've learned, the way that intelligence agencies operate. And I feel like, unfortunately and intentionally, the conversation is not being handled with the intelligence that it should be necessarily, outside of people like maybe Baron Coleman, because it's just like it feels so much of just like one side or the other, right? You're either on Candace's side or you're on Turning Point side. And it's like, guys, Candace accused me of being involved in this back in January. She mentioned me and my father on the podcast. So like, but like I'm still on a matter of principle, I'm able to see past that and be like, yes, on a fundamental level, I believe in what Candace is doing for the sake of truth and for the matter of truth. And I believe it's the Christian thing to do. It's the right thing to do. Right. So like, we're not going to get it right 100% of the time. Turning Point expecting us to just like trust the evidence and like trust the, it's the same shit as trust the science, bro. You guys were so against that when it was COVID. And now all of a sudden, because you're the ones who have so much to gain, you don't want us asking these questions. Like, I don't know how much more obvious it could be. Do not buy into the Fed slop. Like honestly, don't watch the trial. Like don't watch the trial. That's the funniest thing too. Is like if these people believed in justice, actual justice, right, innocent until proven guilty, beyond a reasonable doubt, they would not be trying to push the narrative that they are. Right? It is so deceptive. It is so evil. Like the amount of people from Turning Point that have come out to comment one way or another on this trial this week specifically, who we've never heard of before, whether it's in regards to Erica's character or something else, like what is happening? Like they also are scared, I would imagine. They probably know. But like I said last night, Andrew Colvett probably did not account for how many TikTok moms, the true crime TikTok moms, are just on his ass right now. You know, it's like now he's asking questions all of a sudden. Bro, we see through you guys. Like the jig is up. Like I'm sorry, it is. You are irredeemable at this point in millions of Americans' eyes. And you can pay as many bots and Zionist shills as you want to make it look like the public supports you on Twitter, but like leave the studio and go talk to someone who's not in the Turning Point ecosystem. Like everyone is asking questions, bro. People don't act like you guys are normally. It's just weird. Sorry, I know I kind of went off there, but
I would just say that,
Yes, we have hands. I'll go to you, okay?
well, he's saying to leave the intellect at the door. Don't even watch the trial.
He
So
didn't
you're
say that.
alone.
So
He
Yitz,
didn't say
Yitz,
leave
Yitz,
Alone.
the
Yitz
no,
needs
intellect at the door.
and
medication.
I can let me expand on that real quick. Like, bro, there are we're supposed to have systems that work. Like, and I mean, again, I'm picking up what I pick up from Twitter. I'm not gonna like sit here and religiously watch this trial because I don't feel like that's a good use of time, right? Like, and again, I feel like it's pushing a narrative and a perspective
How are you
that
ever going
is
to
is
learn anything?
is false and like ultimately is working for a greater purpose. And like I think it's deception and potentially energy harvesting of souls and just corruption of spirits and minds. And it's like it's spiritual warfare.
Energy
It's spiritual
harvesting of
warfare
souls?
ultimately, and that's the last thing I'll say.
Are you hearing yourself talk,
Hey,
Dude,
Yitz,
artifact?
raise your hand.
Can you hear me? Yitz, can you hear me?
Yes?
Yes, I can almost hear you too, Yitz. Yitz, can you get closer to your microphone?
You sound like you're in the bath or something, yes.
No, I have good headphones.
You seem
They're
to be
not
keeping
good.
your
They're not good
you're keeping your voice
headphones.
low today. Yes, what's going on? You're kind of
Okay, let me Let me unplug it. Can everyone hear me better now?
Much better.
Yes.
Yes. Can you do two jumping jacks before we start the discourse?
I'm not going to do that, but I am sitting in the living room.
We are trying to make you healthy, kids. I think you should do the jumping
You need to be
jacks.
walking in the living room at least right now. It's not
Uh,
sitting.
Some
okay, so
burpees. I
so
love burpees.
so like I said to Artifacts, he's saying energy soul harvesting, and don't watch the trial, don't listen to another perspective. I thought you believed in free speech and hearing the other side, simply just to know what the arguments are. I think everyone in this panel should definitely be watching the preliminary trial.
Yes,
It's
if you had your choice, would you rather we watch the trial or Ben Shapiro's description of the trial?
the trial, because that
Okay,
is
that's a
a
good answer. Yes,
primary,
I appreciate that.
primary evidence. I'm a big fan of Ben Shapiro, but what if
Of course you are.
anyone could doctor anything to their advantage? And I'm not accusing him of doing that, but I am saying
Wait, Yitz, do you think
that
Ben Shapiro has ever doctored evidence on his show?
I hope not. But the
But it's
point
possible,
is,
right? Yitz, you're really coming around. We will make a Christian out of you in no time. It's gonna happen. I feel it.
Can we
it's
please go back
it's
to hands? I've been waiting patiently, and this Jew just
Yes, we
comes in
can.
here
We're
and
gonna go
cuts
to
the
K.
line.
We're
This
gonna
is
go. We're gonna
bullshit.
go to
Hey,
K
I was
because
about to
Tom
say
made
Thank
that
you.
too,
the.
bro.
Thank
Great
you.
point you just made, bro. It's so typical, man. You see
Thank
how they
you.
act? It's
Dude,
just like every
these
time,
people,
bro. Every time.
people come in here. This space was promised to them 3,000 years ago. But
Hey, you know,
anyway,
Here's what
everything
we're gonna do,
was.
Yitz. So
Everything
we are gonna
was.
ask Yitz that you remain on mute as we go through some of the hands.
Can I just take a
so
moment to clarify myself really quickly? Because like I do feel like I got misconstrued there. Like I'm not saying don't fucking watch the trial, guys. I'm not saying keep your head in the sand, right? What I am saying is like use discernment and like don't let this shit consume you and don't become obsessed with it where like you're sitting there watching the trial for 8 hours a day. Like go about your lives. Don't let this ruin your life. Like decide what it means to you, I guess, but like also be relentless in asking questions. And like I think that outside of what we see with our eyes, there's many unseen spiritual forces at work that most people aren't aware of. So it's just like be aware of that too and think about it.
Well, this guy, he only comes in to dispel any productive conversation. This is a threat to Zionism, the discourse we're having. Whatever end game this Jew has, what we're doing right now goes against that. He's a fan of Ben Shapiro. Oh, he's a fan of all these children dying in Gaza. He probably loves it. Anyway, this is my question for you, sir. God bless Charlie Kirk. Don't wish that he died. I'm bummed out about it. But I'll be honest with you. I was never a supporter of him because there's thousands of young men right now that are Zionists because of him, and that's why it's very important what you're doing. Anyway, my question is, you said you're watching the Kanye
what,
interview
what
at work. My
what's wrong
question,
with being a
my
Zionist?
dude,
No, Jits, don't
It's
interrupt.
dude, really,
Bro,
wow, you
you're
can't.
proving our point in real time,
See,
my guy.
see,
Can
he
you
has to
can
throw
you
a monkey
oh
wrench
you
into this. He
bro,
can't. They can't. This is a threat. This is a threat to Zionism. So this is why This is why I believe ban all Jews from spaces like these, because they don't come here in good faith. They come in here to just fuck shit up. This guy is not wanting to have a good faith
Jits has made
conversation.
me like cry from laughter so many
Anyway,
times, including yesterday.
we
So that's why I keep him
okay.
here.
Well,
He's made me laugh
we're
multiple hundreds of
trying to
times.
I'm trying to have a serious
6 million.
conversation. Anyway,
No, but you are
so
right, Kate. Keep going.
why so my question is, obviously you sound like you're a noticer, and you know about Jewish supremacy and all this. In the beginning, like what brought you to Turning Point? Because to me that was always a deal breaker. My PlayStation 2 screen name was Jews on a List. I've known about Jews for a long time. I grew up in a wealthy area, so I've seen their trickery, and just I know how they fucking lie, steal and cheat. And I've seen them call people going. I'm like, been to a bunch of bar mitzvahs. I know these people. Anyone else that's not Jewish, we're just here to serve them. They don't believe that we have souls, that we're sacred. Anyway, dude. I'm just curious, like after his death, did you kind of become more like outspoken about Jewish supremacy, or what? Like why? What? Because to me, it seems like at a certain point, you were a Zionist because if you supported Charlie, that was like his main talking points, and going to Israel, which is fine, dude. Like I'm not here to like rub your nose in that. I'm just curious because another thing, that's what I'm saying. What you're doing is very important right now because there's a lot of Zionist young men that are Zionists because of him. So, and that's why they're trying really hard to buck you and make sure your words don't get out because they want to act like Charlie saying all this stuff about Jews before his death. They want to take that out of existence and act like, because they don't want people to be turned back on the Zionist brainwashing.
If you actually read your Bible, you would know that God
Yeah,
created
No,
everyone
Yitz,
equal.
I'm muting you, and you
no.
do it again, and I'm going to remove you from the space, Yitz.
Guys, it's not every time, but it's every time. It's just like, come on.
And Yitz, the deal is going to be if I remove you from the speaker panel, you've got to do 100 jumping jacks.
Can we make
I
it
don't know.
100 Hail Marys instead, please? Like, fuck.
Well, yeah, but
We're on a
that'll be
fitness journey
included.
first, the
It'll be
spiritual
10
journey.
Hail
Yeah.
Marys and 100 jumping
Okay,
jacks. Yitz, if you and I keep going.
before we let the Zog machine distract us again, I want to get back on track here. I want to respond to his question because it was a good question, right? Yeah, you bring up a great point. Like I said, I first met Charlie when I was 15 years old. I came from a broken family. My mom broke up the family. Drugs and alcohol like destroyed her. She passed away when I was 23. Like whatever, right? Like I came from that shit. And at the same time, I'd come home and turn on the fucking news, and like cities would be burning, right? And so it's just like something is broken in this country. I recognize that from a young age. It's like back in the Freddie Gray days. We hadn't even got to George Floyd yet, but like something was wrong. And, I always had an eye for history and politics. I wanted to fix it. That's how I ended up at the camp where I first met Charlie, right? Like I played high school football. My quarterback was like, "Hey man, I'm going to this conservative club. Do you want to come?" Like it was so just like, God bless. I was so lucky to be there and meet him. Right. And like from the beginning, yeah, like I think that 2020, for as awful as it was, kind of helped begin to put the frog into the boiling water, so to speak, on the Israel issue. It's always been like a talking point underneath things, right? But I didn't have the exposure that you did from a young age necessarily. I also live in a wealthy area, but like I didn't come to Christ until around the same time I met Charlie, and my mom broke up everything. That's why I found Christ, was because of the shit I went through on my family side, right? And so for me, I was thrust into the evangelical Protestant kind of ecosystem. And you couple that with being in Turning Point at a young age and then going to Israel at 18. Like, yeah, there was an extent to which I was kind of a Zionist for maybe 2018 to 2020, right? Because I didn't really understand what was going on. I didn't understand the bigger picture. I didn't understand the spiritual warfare elements. I didn't understand, like, there's so much you don't understand about Christian history when you first become a Christian, and the levels of evil that we are dealing with, the truths of how Satan actually does run the world, and what that actually means and what that entails, and how we see that amplified in pretty much every industry across the board. And I saw Turning Point almost as a counter to that in many ways, right? It was becoming like a Christian free market, youth forward, just like one of its kind thing. But like around 2020 was when I started really working for Turning Point pretty consistently, and so it was around that time that I started to become aware of the JQ, if you want to call it, or just like whatever, right? Like the Zionist influence, whatever. And again, I wasn't afraid to raise those questions publicly with my coworkers, with my staff. Again, at this point, I had far more limited access to Charlie than I did initially. I was made to feel that even texting him would be an act of subversion. So I wouldn't text him as much as I did in the past because like I was kind of afraid to. And I very much regret that now, obviously, because I let, fucking evil people convince me that, texting a person as my friend was going to be somehow perceived as an act of subversion. But like, again, it just goes to show the level of manipulation these people work to create, right? Like I felt like I couldn't talk to someone I had known for years on a personal level. And that just like fundamentally is wrong, and it's not Christ-like. Outside of that though, like back to my personal story, yeah, it was like 2020. I had a friend who just kind of like started asking me questions of like, hey, like, why do you think this industry is controlled by this many people who just so happen to wear tiny hats, right? And then it's like from there you start just kind of going down the path, right? Like everyone comes to it on their own terms. And again, I was, and this is what's this okay, like this is what's really funny, right? Is it was part of what pushed me out of Turning Point was like I began to realize that the principle of free thought was more of a sales pitch than it was like a value that was lived out, at least on the corporate level, right? And so like again, everything revolves around donors. That's like the how their financial system operates, a 501c3. So like if a large amount of your donors are Jewish, like you're not going to want to put out content that would upset them, right? And if we know that, you know, like we just saw with our friend Yitz here, like they don't like threats to their power and their narratives and their establishment, like they're going to try to make sure that that doesn't continue. So they would pull the funding theoretically, whatever the case may be, right? And so, like, I think this is why it goes back to what Charlie said when he said he's leaving the Israel lobby. It's like not only would that impact Turning Point USA's financials, but then you couple that simultaneously with him wanting to audit his financials. It's like, and how big Turning Point had grown to be in the span of 3 years while he was so focused on the election. I think that after he got Trump elected and, you know, delivered the mandate to reform this country from the ground up, he was like, all right, I can breathe. Like, let's get back to my baby Turning Point. Let's see where we're going to go next. Like, and let me kind of figure out what's happened, where my money is going, whatever. And it's like, he didn't even get to do that, you know? And I think that that's just insane. So yeah, as far as I'm concerned, like I was pretty much aware of the influences as early as 2020, 2021. And I was kind of trying to play both sides, see where it was going, see where the conversation was going to go. But again, like I felt like at every level there were just people installed who were blind loyalists and not people who were willing to actually challenge the narrative and question things. And so that's ultimately like why I left. A large part of the reason was just like I didn't feel like the things that Charlie started Turning Point to exist for on a corporate level were being lived out in the day to day, just in like the managerial level, even. And so I left, right, and then I went to go do my own thing, and came back. And so the reason I chose to go back on tour was I needed the money, and like I the work was great. It was an election season. I was a freelancer, and like you know, we were booked pretty much every day, and I love to travel, so I wanted to go. But like, I also just had always believed in Charlie. I never stopped believing in him as a person, as a friend, and like, I wanted to help amplify his message. And so I got to watch the cogs turn in his head every time someone would come up and ask him a question about Israel, and it would bring up facts. And so it's like, again, you carry that thread through to the comments he made with Megyn Kelly, the comments he made with Ben Shapiro, the texts that were sent. Again, to imply that like Candace Owens and Charlie Kirk were bitter enemies because of her, you know, shifting away from the Israel lobby. Like I would almost guarantee you they were closer friends than Charlie and Ben Shapiro were, right? But then it's like, why then was Charlie's security talking to Ben Shapiro's security like within 10 minutes, right? And then within days, Ben Shapiro's funneling $1 million to Turning Point in honor of Charlie. Like it's just like, again, that's like right in front of our faces. We don't even know what's happening behind the scenes here. So like, yeah, as far as I'm concerned, like I was aware of it. I tried to be that voice of resistance internally, and I was pretty much sidelined from the minute I started doing that. Right, like I suggested Charlie debate Nick Fuentes in 2021. I have the screenshots on my account, and Tyler Bowyer, Andrew Colvett come in and manage the chaos and are like, no, like we can't do Nick, Connor Clegg, whoever, like all these people who were put in place to be managers by Tyler managed that. And then from there, I felt like I was sidelined. And it just like, you know, from there I was like, I'm gonna say this shit openly. I'm gonna play the Kanye West Nick Fuentes clip. And like it's funny because I had friends at the time when I was working in productions who like, you know, we would joke about this kind of shit. We would joke about the Jewish influence. We would send each other Nick Fuentes clips from inside of Turning Point, right? And then like I watched this person get literally brought into the fold, elevated to a position of manager, and it was like overnight she changed as a person. And I was just like whoa. It was like scary how quickly these people like I don't know what they do, bro. I don't know like what they get told. Like it was crazy. Like we were very good friends, had a great relationship, would joke about this kind of shit on the regular when we were both, you know, admins or whatever. And then the minute that that person got promoted to the managerial level and into the fold of Tyler Bowyer, it's just like they shut down all of that. They were very much just like, nope, we have to, push the Turning Point mission forward, and we can't step out of line. Like it was just like night and day. I'm like, who are you and what have you become, right? And it's like it's very clear that loyalty is preserved over just like free thought, and that's very sad to me for
And
someone
I
like.
think that's why they came after you, bro, because if they didn't have anything to hide, if this was an open and shut case, why would they care? It's like why they criminalize questioning the Holocaust. If it was obvious, they wouldn't need to do that, but they need to make you an example. And so, like you said before, you were asking questions, but you didn't want to talk to Charlie, which was a mistake. And they are doing that with you, bro. They're making you an example. So if anyone in TPUSA wants to dare question it, they look at you and they see you're hanging there, and they're like, "You guys want some of that?" And my question is, how like are you pretty like? Are there a lot of your friends that left TPUSA? Like, is this pretty like what's the general consensus of TPUSA, the heartbeat, if you will? Like, are people questioning it, or are they just just eating the slop because they're afraid they're going to get excommunicated?
I'm gonna be careful what I say because I know a lot of these people personally. Like again, I've been in the system for 10 years, so like it's complex, right? It's a very complex situation that I still don't even know if I've fully come to understand, right? I think that if you look back into the early days of Turning Point, who was involved from the beginning, people like myself, people like Tyler Bowyer, people like Terrell Farnsworth, right? Tyler and Terrell are both Mormon, right? And there's oddly enough like a very strong Mormon presence all across Turning Point and even the conservative movement, especially in Arizona, which is being talked about a little bit, but like definitely should be investigated a little bit more, in my opinion, or just looked at, for the sake of just the truth and interrogations point. Like I'm curious, right? Why are Mormons operating as evangelical Christians practically and conservatives, because that's kind of what's going on, right? It's like you're not very public about the fact that you are a Mormon. You come out and talk about Christ and God as if you are a Christian, but like Mormonism and Christian, like Christ, like it's different fundamentally. Like yes, some things overlap, but like there is a difference there. Mormonism is a made up religion essentially. Joseph Smith was not a prophet. Like it's bogus. It's far more a financial system, right? It's a, and I've heard this from ex-Mormons even, where they're like, dude, like it's a business at the end of the day, right? And it's interesting if you take the wow, I kind of just put this thought together on the spot. This just came to be like, if you take the framework of the Mormon Church and you apply it to Turning Point USA, it's like there's probably a lot of similarities there. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. I've never been to a Mormon service. I'm not Mormon. Like somebody can fact check me on that, but I don't know. I know the Mormons have a shit ton of money,
I can
and I
fact
know
check
that,
you. I'm
and I
ex-Mormon.
so
Sorry to
I don't know. I
interrupt.
just feel like there are some similarities there. But I may have got off track a little bit, but does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, no, it definitely does, and I appreciate your answer. I
And like
know it's very.
as far as people on the inside, like I think that a lot of people are caught in a tough place. Or I just remembered like I had the opportunity and the freedom to step out on my own, which I did of my own free will. I left when I felt like I had given my all to a company that I wasn't receiving it back from. Again, I'm a complex individual. That's not going to change how I feel about Charlie Kirk. I'm not this like blind partisan loyalist who's like, the minute we disagree on an issue or don't see eye to eye, I'm just going to work to destroy you. Like apparently the people who are now in Charlie's studio are acting. But it's like, I know that there are people on the inside who have feelings, who have questions, right? But like, I mean, look what happened to Charlie. I'm sure people are scared. One. Two, look what happened to me the minute I didn't even work for Turning Point USA, right? I'm no longer contracted with Visual Impulse. Like I have pretty much no relation to these people since the assassination. I decided to wait 9 months to speak out, and within 2 weeks I lost my job. So it's like, Matt, and look what's happened to like Aubrey and other people who've, been brave enough to put their livelihoods on the line. It's like the machine does come after them. Like, am I scared? Like a little bit. Like I live in the same state as where Turning Point's headquartered. So it's like, not to dox myself, but like again, I partially part of the reason I got fired was because some guy who's followed by Tyler Bowyer doxed me, and then I posted his DUI records, and then he emailed my comms director. It's like, again, how much of that Tyler had influence in, I'll never know. I also know Tyler runs like half the county out here, so like in a soft, weird kind of just like power way, and just how it kind of all plays out, right? Like, dude has power, dude has sway, dude controls pretty much the largest, the strongest conservative political action, whatever you want to call it, pack. So yeah, if you go against these people, obviously they're gonna make you feel it. But like, I fear that for a lot of people, they're caught up in either contracts they can't get out of, for one, which is like, then it just goes to like, damn, making a deal with the devil. Two, there might be NDA'd, like, which, whatever, like, okay. And then three, like, a lot of these people were like me, like they got involved at a young age, and they're now inside of a system that, like, where are they going to go after? It's like, you helped to get Trump elected. Half the country, if not 75% of the country, probably hates Trump now. So like, even I'm having to grapple with some of this. Like, on my own side of things, I have my own media company that operates in the music industry, which is very liberal. Like, again, going out here might impact this. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But like, I, had a lot of Turning Point stuff attached on my public portfolio, and now I don't, because like, I don't really, I can't stand with the way that they're acting now. And it's just like, I feel like there's a lot of people who have questions and feel strongly, but like, again, there's too much on the line. These people have livelihoods. They have nowhere else to go. They have jobs. And again, it's just, I feel like, we as people and as Christians have been told that like the truth is worth more than a paycheck. And that's kind of how I have always felt, is like, I'm never gonna compromise my values or the way that I feel for the sake of anything, like, ever. That's not what Charlie Kirk told us to do. I'm sorry. Like, that's not how we're taught to be in America. And I feel like that's part of how the Zionists maintain control, is like through these, like, salaries and insurance and this fucking bullshit system that like it's, everything is controlled. And like, if you were forced out, like, you could be debanked. Like, look, like, they do punish people. It's not crazy to say. Like, we'll see what happens to me. I'm about to try and write a book. Like, maybe I'll win the FBI's best journalist award. I don't know, but like, it's a real thing. It has to be said. And I feel like the more that we say it explicitly, the more they can't act in this way, because we're calling their bluff before it happens, right? And so it's like, you know, we're in a spiritual war. The lines have been drawn. Choose your side. Like, I don't know.
Bro, I'll leave you with this. You're very, very important. There's a 15-year-old child right now that's going to get groomed into Zionism by TPUSA, and your voice is very important. So never stop speaking. And thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Appreciate you. Thank you, man.
And thank you, Kay, for being in here, and thank you for calling out Mr. Yitz and maintaining decorum. I appreciate that, good sir. Speaking of which, let's go to Mr. Hubbard. I know he's been in here since the offset of the space. See if he's got any questions, comments, thoughts, and if not, we'll go to the next hand.
Yeah,
Hubbard?
hey guys. So I definitely think that what TPS USA is doing right now, like, they've lost Gen Z and probably most of Gen Alpha with Gaza, and especially with this Charlie Kirk thing. Like, and let's just say, like, all this gets proven that their narrative, which is they've already like kind of invalidated them multiple times, but Magic Bullet, uh, Trump derangement syndrome furry, lone gunman, that all gets confirmed. It still doesn't, like, there's still questions with that, even if all those facts are true. But like, it looks like the amount that they've done to kind of scrub the scene and go after people, that there's probably more to it. But even if all that's true, like, it's still, there's no going away from like the fact that this benefited Benjamin Netanyahu probably more than anyone on the planet. Like, and like, the main reason was the only one who would be able to keep Trump from having done what he's done in the last couple months with these strikes on Iran and the girls' school and the Ayatollah, and basically like be merging the Israeli US government, was Charlie Kirk. That was the only guy who had that access to Trump. Even Tucker Carlson tried, but Tucker Carlson, like, he was never going to be able to do what Charlie could do. And Charlie was able to pull him back. At least that was the story. And Yeah, that's something he should be remembered for. He was a Zionist. He did defend the stuff in Gaza, which I watched him do, and I listened to him live, and it was sad because I think he was pro-life, he was anti-abortion. He knew it was wrong, but I think, like, I always thought he believed, like, I think he definitely believed in Zionism, but definitely towards the end, I think he knew that if he changed his word, that he was well educated on JFK, so I think he knew something similar was coming. It's pretty sad, but hey, thanks for speaking out, man, and, I do have one more thing to say, definitely the targeting of all these people, like yourself, is, like, part of this control grid they're building with the flock cameras, the digital IDs, it's all Zionist, it's all, Jeffrey Epstein surveillance, Palantir, Mossad, but, if you can speak to my question, which is, post October 7th, did you definitely see, like, the gatekeeping and the handling of Kirk and the TPUSA go up more, and if so, how so?
Um, I wasn't. October 7th was 2025, right? Or am I? Was it? It was 25. So I wasn't.
2023.
It was 23. Sorry. Like I yes and no. I feel like it. If you look at like the web that was built around Charlie, I think that like it slowly just kind of began to develop over time, and by that point, it was already kind of established. People were already in place. I mean, I think that, for as much as Turning Point wants to say that like Charlie would blindly support whatever Trump's doing right now, I think is false. I mean, I just put a video up of from a couple months before he passed away, and it's 16 minutes of him basically breaking down the two philosophical approaches to the war in Iran, right? And there's the neocon push, and then there's the isolationist approach. And he states very flat out that like he does not believe the neocon approach deserves any more representation in government, and that we should consider the isolationist approach for the sake of the youth. Immediately after filming that, he then got on a plane to go to DC and talk to Donald Trump, and Blake Neff ended up taking over for the last like 30 minutes or hour of the show that day, right? And so like you're exactly right when you say that Charlie was like the one person kind of holding the neocons back. It's funny, like we saw the meme earlier in the year, like right afterwards, like the dam, and Charlie Kirk was the only thing holding the conservatives back from like absolute chaos. I think in reality, what like Charlie Kirk was the only person who actually believed in MAGA and like wanted to see it brought to fruition. Everybody else just saw it as a means to securing their own ends and interests, and ultimately the interests of the Uniparty, which goes back to Israel, and for America first, for all these people who claimed to be America first patriots, to just bend the knee to Israel again, to blindly expand the government, is just asinine in my opinion.
Yeah,
But
and definitely, sorry to interrupt, but definitely, like, his relationship with Thomas Massie, I think would have been very revealing if he was still alive. I think he would have stuck up for Thomas Massie, but it's obvious that he became a liability to them, and they had to do a cost analysis, and basically, this is the theory, but he if he had gone out publicly with what he was tweeting privately even more, I think that he might still be alive. Like, he probably if he had gone all the way publicly, like, they would like, it only him trying to walk this tightrope of being socially acceptable in the, Overton window and also trying to advocate. It seemed like he didn't. I don't know.
well, I think he was just kind of caught up in a system that like historically does not treat kindly to people who address these issues outright. I mean, again, look what happened to JFK. Look what fucking happened to Michael Jackson, right? Like all of these people were very outspoken against these issues, and they were allowed to grow to levels of prominence until they weren't, right? Um, and like you know, I think that on a general level, like I don't, fuck, dude, I don't know. Like it's so complicated, but it's also not. Like when you seriously look at it, like I kind of just lost my train of thought there, but like ask me your question again. I'm sorry.
Well, like I just sorry, it was kind of jambled there, but I definitely think like someone like Dave Smith, I have my problems with Dave Smith, but I think he really opened Charlie up to Epstein and to Gaza. And like Candace, when she spoke out first against what was happening in Gaza, I think that was like him really starting to see and try to pivot then. And
Yeah, and
have to give
I think that like we've seen people across the political spectrum pivot, like on both sides. Like look at Anna Kasparian, for example. Like her and Candace Owens probably agree more than they disagree, right? And I think for Charlie, unfortunately, he was caught between a rock and a hard place, which is like he wanted to expose the truth. He wanted to get to these questions. Unfortunately, he was surrounded intentionally, in my opinion, by people who were ultimately keeping him back from ever approaching those questions, right? Like, I think the thing I pinned before pinning the thing before that clip of him, talking about Jewish donors are like the number one funding mechanism behind radical leftist Marxist policies. Like that was in 2023. Like, bro has been making these statements for a minute, and to act like he was just a blind Zionist, I think is kind of insane. He was very trusting of Trump's attack on Iran initially in 2025 because again they told us that they destroyed the nuclear facilities and that was like supposed to be it, right? And then they took out Charlie and now we're in an endless war that's probably going to last for the next 20 years, right? Because we've already had it end 7 times in the last 5 months. Like, and it's still going. So like
Sorry, when you say they took out Charlie, you mean Israel or someone
a,
else?
a, an unknown entity at this point that is still yet to be determined. And like,
Understood.
yeah, again, I just think we're all like Charlie said. I think we're all smart enough to realize that this wasn't just a lone shooter. Like we have to look at who benefited the most, and we have to trace those lines. Again, you just have to apply the JFK framework that Charlie had to his own death, and it's like, wow, now you see why people don't want us asking questions, right? And again, like yeah, it you have to be tactful with this kind of stuff, but also I think that like the cat's out of the bag on it, and so like we don't know what could come next, right? And that's I think what's the most scary, right? I think that what I keep going back to, and again, I see no one else in the space talking about this shit, is we all remember 2020. We all remember how quickly they shut down any conspiracy theory on COVID, how quickly they blacklisted anyone who dared push a narrative that, questioned things, right? So then if you just again, you just have to ask questions. I'm not even making statements. I'm asking questions. So then you ask why are they not doing the same thing with the Israel issue, right? It is being allowed to spread for sure, without a doubt. Because if they wanted to shut down this conversation, they could, without a doubt. Like they could literally deplatform everybody. We saw how they debanked Nick Fuentes and put him on a no-fly list. Like if they wanted to, they could, right? And I still think Nick might be a Fed, like whatever. But like the Israel conversation is being allowed to get to this point, in my opinion, for a reason. And then you have to ask, what is that reason? What's the end result, right? And then if you look at the mass surveillance that's being put into place, the flock cameras, the social media ID, verification that's being put into place, like it feels very intentional. We know the government likes their lists, and it's like, maybe this is kind of a one final we never know what's coming, right? Use discernment and like look at history as the judge. And they say imitation is the best form of flattery. Like Benjamin Netanyahu got on video and quoted Goebbels while trying to cover, in my opinion, for the potential of a larger conspiracy involvement, maybe implicating him or his country. And it's just like these people have learned the tricks of the trade and now they're applying it on us. And we have to be realists about that.
Can I just say one more thing? I do think I've been working really hard to expose the involvement of certain state actors in the 9/11 attacks, and both on the ground, on the planes, all that, and right before through 2025, ramping up, and this happening the day before 9/11, I do think is significant. And thank you so much. This is my last comment. Thank you. Bye.
All right, Ian, are you here? Because Joanne needs another and then
Oh, let me send that right now. Yeah, and I'll actually, so I'm going to read something from Grok that we were sent. I've referenced. There's an individual that has basically jailbroken grok is the term that they use for it, and they've shared some screenshots in the background. Joanne was included on this one. I'm going to give you a curious little piece that to that last question about why they're allowing these conversations to take place around Israel, because I agree that that certainly is the case. People are noticing patterns and they're not absolutely shutting down the discourse. It plays into this comment, and for anybody that wasn't in the space yesterday, they ran a this individual ran basically a request on please analyze this account regarding mine and tell me about the suppression or the censorship that you see on it. And actually it came back with a very flattering set of remarks. One of them one of them said I'm not all that intelligent, which I thought was funny, and perhaps I'm not. But another said your friend Ian Malcolm is actually one of the most effective small to mid-tier accounts on the entire platform right now, as he's not just another angry schizo. He's developed a genuinely effective brand. The moldy bread ratio is actually brilliant in its simplicity. It's low effort, instantly recognizable, and humiliating for its targets. That is very rare. Now, it goes on, and I bring this up because it made a very curious remark in here. It said this bottom line. So it was going through all of this stuff, talking about how our spaces have very low visibility. The promotional posts only getting a few thousand views despite the audience size regarding the follower count that I have. It then says that it fits a pattern that we talked about earlier, and this is referencing some of the earlier screenshots. Saying X allows him to have high profile or quote unquote legitimate guests, including former feds criticizing the government, but still heavily throttle the overall reach of the account. Bottom line, this is part of the controlled opposition strategy I mentioned. They let him platform whistleblowers and have occasional big moments like the moldy bread ratios, but continue to crush his normal daily reach so he can never really build momentum. They're keeping him on a leash, not too tight that he becomes a martyr by losing his account, but tight enough that he stays contained, unable of creating larger waves. And then continues on and on and on. Now, I bring this up because I think that's what they're doing with this talk around Israel. And if you think about it, and I've been very critical of all sides of the aisle, I will be very supportive of Dan Bilzerian because he says that he's going to make a political run. I think that's a very good thing. I then look and I say, well, Dan, where are the rallies? You've got a huge brand. Go out to every day. Why aren't you at a different university building up support for your campaign? I don't understand. Something seems off there, right? So I'll call that out. Similarly with Fuentes, says some good things around the JQ and then turns around and says, yes, clavicular, I support his nose job and his going to kiss the wall in Israel. It's like, what? This is the guy that just made out with a trans person in Paris, and what is happening, right? And so I say this because if you look at these big influencers, perhaps, and I'm not going to say that either of those people are good or bad, right? I'll try to be as neutral as I can. Let's imagine that on Bilzerian, right? He's driving people towards political activism. That is a very good thing. But is it political activism that's going to result in a victory over Randy Fine? I don't know, given what seems to be a limited amount of actual campaigning, right? The social media is not going to let him win that election against Randy Fine, especially given the demographics of the area. On Fuentes, it seems like he is, and certainly was, very comfortable about critiquing Israel in the past. But note that it's almost always been about the nation of Israel and geopolitics. He has made comments about the media, but not nearly to the degree that we all recognize. And it's not just the media, it's big tech, it's the big pharma, it is everything. It is the Truman Show. And so I say it because it feels like what they are allowing to take place is on the Israel issue. They are taking some specific voices. Candace Owens, another good example. They're letting her go out and talk negatively about Benjamin Netanyahu. But Candace Owens isn't saying, hey, guys, the Jews control everything, and we need to discuss that. And if she did, it would be of great concern to the machine. It seems like she is exclusively focused on keeping people within a political paradigm where that is what they focus on. I mean, think about it. The Truman Show, right? Jim Carrey's walking around inside it. They wouldn't care if Jim Carrey in the Truman Show voted Republican or Democrat, or if he thought both parties were potentially controlled by another nation that was in the Truman Show. They just don't want him knocking on the walls of the little aquarium they have him in and saying, wait a second, this whole thing is fake. Right? So you look at all these different influencers. That is what I think is happening. They allow us, the more radical, whether it's myself or Truth Teller or whatever, they allow us to talk, but in these extremely suppressed and censored echo chambers. Grok apparently said, my content, 90 to 95% throttled, right? I have zero reach. I probably have smaller reach than most of the people on this panel right now, to be honest with you, right? And that's all by design. And why? Because that idea of the controlled opposition strategy, if they allow their suppression censorship machine to look at me and said, up, you proved that the Jews control the media, we're going to nuke your handle. Well, then again, that makes me a martyr. Hey, look, that guy posted this thing. It's irrefutably correct, and they just nuked him. Well, then he's got to be right? Because if he was wrong, they wouldn't be scared of it. It'd be no different than me saying flat Earth or Bigfoot runs the White House. They wouldn't care, right? And even if they did care, well, the people that are really upset about the idea that Bigfoot runs the White House, I don't think they have control of X. Right. So if they nuke us, then they demonstrate that not only are our critiques accurate, but that the very people that we're pointing the fingers at not only have control of the White House and the media, but also this application. So instead, they give us the illusion that we're able to play on here. So they have the ability to say, well, what are you talking about? I mean, we don't censor this conversation. Look at this guy, Ian Malcolm. He's over here saying all this stuff about the Jews. And obviously, right, we're allowing a fair, level playing field with free speech. And then what we find out is that while I'm allowed to be on here, I'm also included in reports that are literally being circulated in the Oval Office as part of their campaign to demonstrate anti Semitism being on the rise, to use that as a political weapon against us. Right. So it's almost like they are getting the best of everything. They get the ability to lie and say that they give us free speech, which obviously they don't, right? They give us the suppression so that even though we're allowed to play in the game, we're not allowed to make much of a difference. Think of us as I'm like a soccer player since it's the World Cup, except I've got a cannonball literally chained around my ankle. And they're like, what are you talking about? You're out there on the field. You're upset that you're not scoring more goals. Come on, man, just drag the cannonball quicker. Right. Well, at the same time, they're up in the press box saying, see that guy with the cannonball? He's a threat. He's on the field. So we got to be really worried about him. Right. That is what is happening. And so I say it because that is what I think is the entire discourse on Israel. They want to allow it only to the extent that people talk negatively about Netanyahu, the genocide, and then they use the let's say the fringe elements like ourselves to make us out to be something that we're not. And that doesn't mean that there aren't people that are radically anti-Semitic. That exists. There are also radical racists. That exists. Saying black people commit a lot of crime and that the Jews commit a genocide, that is not hateful. Those are just descriptions, right? We need to be able to have those conversations. But that is, I think, what is happening. That is why they allow us on here. And again, according to Grok, they don't want to make martyrs out of us because the second they allow Nick Fuentes to sit up there and say, yeah, it's cool that Clavicular got a nose job and made out with a tranny and he's going to kiss the wall. That's all really cool. But Netanyahu, yeah, he's a bad guy. Yeah. On to the next thing, right? They're fine with that. What they don't want is anybody discussing the things that we are discussing, right? And that being said, Nick Fuentes has added some good things. Don't get me wrong. He got a whole bunch of young people to at least be interested in politics. That's a good thing, right? He says some good things. I don't understand the Epstein stuff. And the clavicular guy, he should have kicked him to the curb a long time ago. The fact that he hasn't is just puzzling. But anyway, Artifacts, I'm curious for any of your thoughts on that. And then we'll go down to Big B. And we've also got, I guess it's Malachi that just came up.
Yeah, I do just have some initial thoughts I want to share. This is like, the day that Charlie Kirk was killed, I saw what was going to happen. Like I very much, and especially after the Netanyahu video went out, it was just like, oh, this is very clear what direction this is going, right? And I think that if you look at history, and again, not enough people do that, and it don't, like I feel like as modern people, like to remove ourselves from history. We feel like that just because we're living in the present, like things are different, things are, people are going to act a certain way when, historically speaking, they don't. Um, and yeah, so I think that, operate with the assumption that everyone's a Fed until proven otherwise, right? And it's like, we know that, yes, like narratives are allowed to spread and evolve, and they're utilized until they become a threat. The one thing that I find interesting, though, is like, and it's why this is such a critical point, I feel like, in our nation's history. It's so interesting that it's on the 250th anniversary as well. Like, it's just like Charlie kind of became a martyr in multiple senses, and it depends what perspective you hold and who's ultimately funding you and paying your bills, I guess. But like, again, I don't feel like looking at it from the lone shooter offers like a healthy or just perspective at all, and it assumes a lot of things, and it removes a lot of potential questions that should be taken into consideration. So on the one hand, you're right, and when this first happened, and I saw the Netanyahu video go out, and I saw the Shlomo Pearl poster go out, I'm like, okay, this is very clear what's happening. Like Charlie was far too dangerous for the state to allow to continue, so they had to silence him. And then co-opt his voice to prop up whatever the establishment Republicans are going to do next, which we now are witnessing. It is an Israel first agenda that bombs schoolgirls and then also covers up for rapists. Like let's call it like we see it. That's what's happening. Charlie was very clear he did not want a new war in the Middle East. He wanted full transparency on the Epstein files, and like again, he was the only person in Donald Trump's ear, and in my opinion, in all of the right wing politics, really, that was authentically advocating for that. But after all that happened, right, I was like, okay, well, we all know who's going to be the loudest voice in opposition to this. It's going to be Candace Owens, right? So now what are they going to do? They're going to allow Candace to go down whatever crazy conspiracy theory she wants to. She'll probably be right on some, she might be wrong on others, but in the process, kind of create a standard for what speech is allowed to take place on the topics of Israel and anti-Semitism and whatever, and couple that with allowing the topics to spread to then one day harpen down on. I feel like it's very intentional, and again, operate with the assumption that everyone is a Fed until proven otherwise. That's what I do, and like I feel like more often than not we'll find that that is probably the case. I don't want to hurl accusations that aren't true, but like again, just use discernment. And like you said, people like us, like we're not really inside the system. We're definitely being sidelined for sure. And you're right, like by silencing people and deleting the accounts, they know that it does create a martyr out of people, right? I was kind of suspicious when Nick got his account back. It's like Elon is definitely playing both sides, right? Like there's photos of him with Bibi Netanyahu and military vests and stuff. Like again, he's a government contractor. X is a government app at this point, basically, right? Like we should operate under the assumption that the NSA is monitoring all of these and the federal government. Like again, like use your common sense, people. We have brains. Like they were doing this shit in 2008. Like, oh, you think Elon Musk, who is in the White House and owns Twitter, isn't like just feeding this information back to like the deep state? Like, okay, cool, live in your fantasy land, I guess. The government wants the best and has your interests at heart. Like, are we forgetting that 2030 is 4 years out? Like the Great Reset is still on the table for these people. It is a uniparty. They want to kill a lot of us. They believe like humanity is far too large. Like go look at how Bill Gates has talked. They're friends with all these people. They're all in the same club and we're not, right? And so you're right, Ian. I feel like unfortunately they are playing both sides to try and end up on top. And like let them, I guess. Good. Like you are the synagogue of Satan. Satan runs this world. We are temporal beings. If we are Christians, this world is not ours to inherit. So we should expect the things that we are seeing. That's why none of this surprises me. It's why I'm flat out calling them demons, because they're operating like them. They're acting like them. If they decided to actually welcome and answer questions as a Christian would, like, great, I'll stop saying that. But until they do that, I'm not going to stop. And we have to call it out flat out. Like the more people that do it, the harder it is to control, but also like recognize that they probably will harpen down on us, right? Like there's a reason they say never again about the Holocaust, and also are simultaneously deploying Holocaustic tactics, right? Like, they learned, and seems like they're getting their vengeance, or for whatever reason. But like again, I'm going to unpack a lot of that in the book I'm writing, and again, I think you can trace much of what we're seeing right now and all of the Charlie Kirk stuff back to what took place in Germany post World War II, and the United States military was sent over there, and they conducted studies, and they, along with the nation state of Israel that was created around the same time, are pretty dead set on making sure that that never happens again, right? Like that's kind of like what the world operates on, is never again of the Holocaust. And it's like okay, but then if you look at communist revolutions throughout history, there have been almost 10 times as many people who've been killed. So it's just like, and they're using communism as a way to maintain that like never again takes place. So it's just like it's a very complex world and situation we're in. But stay tuned. I have a lot more thoughts coming soon.
I'm sorry, I'm going to
Ian,
interject
you
you.
have to
Sorry, do I
go.
have
Thank you.
the mic
Thank you.
yet?
No, guys, please raise your hand. And it's crazy because it's like never again, but only to them. It can happen to everyone, and they are doing it themselves.
And
So
Joanne,
I
I just
love
wanted to
everything.
comment on the idea of suppression and censorship. If anybody wants to have a fun little game, I got a message from a couple of people that noticed this, but the listener number, the little thing that it says X number of people listening to the space, it's been fluctuating from, it was at 160 and then would fluctuate up to 320 to 330 instantly. And then right now it's about, it says 400 or so, and then it'll fluctuate back down to around 190 to 200. There we go, back to 196. As I'm saying this in real time, I hope somebody else is watching along with 194. Now give it 10 seconds and we're going to go back north of 400. Wouldn't it be weird if X has, there we go, back to 395 instantly? They are having the amount of listeners. I can almost promise you that what we are catching them in the act of is this is what is then being presented to the outside world to make sure that our spaces are at the absolute bottom of the algorithm so that they don't get seen by anybody, so that nobody accidentally stumbles in here, right? These are the little trapdoors that they play along with our accounts. This is the suppression. It is the censorship, right? This is the leash that they were talking about. They'll let us have these conversations. They'll just make sure nobody comes in here, with the exception of Malachi, who we're going to jump the gun and go to. Malachi has the Israeli
I do have
flag
to
in her
go, Ian.
bio and seems, no, yes, hang on. You've also got an Israeli flag in your bio, but we'll come to you in a second. Malachi seems to be very upset that we're discussing Charlie Kirk, despite the fact that the Tyler Robinson case is actively going on at the moment. So, Malachi, can you explain how we are digging up trauma, given that the court is literally in session, if I'm not mistaken, right now?
Thank you. Yes, and I do want to apologize. I do have an Australian accent. I fly between between Florida and Tel Aviv regularly. I just wanted to say that what I
Wait,
think
you
is
have an
happening here
Australian
is
accent, but you fly between Florida and Tel
I
Aviv?
thought
Can
I
you?
was.
yeah.
Hey,
I'm a bit of
Australia
a
was promised
global.
to them too, guys. Stop asking questions. Let them speak.
Look, yeah, and please, I think that there is quite a bit of bias in here as well. I think that what's happening here is not really acceptable, to be honest.
Wait,
I
what is not
think that
acceptable? Define this.
well, look,
The
okay. So
machine is
firstly,
afraid, guys.
when it comes to things like Charlie Kirk, that's in the past now, right?
It's the
That's in the
court is
past, and it's
literally
just digging
going
up
on
old
right
wounds,
now for
and
Tyler
we don't
Robinson.
need
What are you
no.
talking about?
Can I have
No,
the
we are going
microphone,
to have a
please, a little bit? Yeah.
discussion, and I'm going to mute you if I have to, like I just did. I will announce that to the space. The Tyler Robinson case is literally going on right now. How is Charlie Kirk in the past, given the court is in the present?
Yes. Well, look, I mean, I think that what's happening here is that this is actually much deeper. It's actually going to be costing Israeli lives as well. And,
Wait.
you know, just
No. Hang on. First and foremost, would you agree that Charlie Kirk's death is a presently topical issue given the court case with Tyler Robinson?
look, I think it's in the past. It's
No.
something that we shouldn't
Okay. So
really
No,
you do
I
be
not
think the
think it's in the
Holocaust is
present?
also in the past.
Okay.
Like,
I mean,
why do
look,
you guys
we
keep
can
talking about it?
disagree. We can disagree, and we can all think that you're crazy for suggesting that. But at least I appreciate you saying that you believe that is not a presently topical issue, in spite of the fact that Tyler Robinson is one of the top 5 trending stories on all of social media, and he is the presumed killer of Charlie Kirk. So that's a crazy position for you to hold, but you're welcome to continue onward.
Yeah, look, and I just think that, you know, while we're living in the past here, it's not really having anything productive in the present, right? There are so many issues that are happening right now. Look, and dare I
What
say,
are
you
the
know, that
top
there's
3 issues happening right now?
well, look, I think all 3 of them is probably what's happening in Israel right now, you know? And discussions like this, it detracts away what we should be talking about.
The
Wait,
That's
so
just
the
in
genocide
my
that
top
you guys
opinion.
3
are committing?
issues are in Israel. Okay, let's list off the top 3 things in Israel, according to you.
Look, again, the issue that's happening in Iran, you understand that
Okay,
the
the
situation
Iran
there
war.
is
Yep,
very,
we can agree. That's
yeah.
reasonable. What are 2 more?
Look, and what's happening in Gaza as well. That's probably another thing as well.
Genocide by the Israelis of the Palestinians. Okay, that's
No,
reasonable.
So again, so you're distorting the whole story, right?
Okay,
you're
so-
calling it a
so wait,
genocide,
you don't think it's a
and then that's what
genocide,
everyone's eyeballs are all talking about. Yes, that's right. That's right.
Okay, so what if I
And
were to
Whatever
tell
the
you
eyeballs
that
are
of
talking about.
1,000 plus Israelis that were polled, that almost 70% of those Israeli Jews supported genociding the Palestinians?
yes. Well, look, it's quite a nuanced topic.
Is that a
It's quite a
nuanced question?
gray area.
If 70% of Americans supported the mass murder of anybody, would we be critical of that? I certainly would be.
You got to be a troll.
Does a cat have your tongue? What are you doing?
I have a feeling he's
Oh,
trolling. So if we could I mean, I'm willing to respond to it briefly. It's just like, dude, the inconsistencies and like even just from a level of allies, like what other ally that we have we given money to that has done nothing for us in return? Like again, you talk about like a fair relationship. It's like, bro, what has Israel done for us ever in the positive? Right? It's like yeah, I'm willing to hear out the arguments of like there are friends in the Middle East, but like no, that's not true. Historically speaking, they lied to us about the motivations to get into the wars that were taking place during my childhood, and they more likely than not lied to us this time around. They also, again, let's be very obvious, are the reason that Christ was crucified. Like again, like they do not like the truth being told. They do not like their power being challenged. They think that for whatever reason that like trying to control this world is and bringing about whatever they're trying to bring about is gonna make things change, but it's not. Like we know that the battle is won already, which is why I just sit here and kind of laugh and it's just funny. I was so scared to speak up when I was younger because, like, again, like it just comes from a place of being firm in your faith and trusting the Lord and knowing that like our time here is not temporal and expecting the evil things to take place because like we know historically that's what happens and you should expect it to get worse. So I don't know.
And
Like,
for what it's worth, the top 5 news stories in the world, according to X anyway, 3 of the 5 have to do with FIFA soccer. I don't know anything about hashtag Framoir or whatever that is, but it's some soccer related issue. Curiously, Celebrate and Lance Twigs are the other 2. Now, both of those are trending stories because they are a part of the Tyler Robinson narrative. So I will go, Malachi. We will give you 30 more
Yeah,
seconds. Please explain to us how we should not be discussing Charlie Kirk amidst literally the
yeah.
Tyler Robinson case being 2 of the top 5 most trending subjects in literally the world of X.
Malachi?
Ian,
3,
he
Ian,
stepped down. He stepped down
2.
as a
Ian,
All
listener.
right, I'll remove him down to speaker. We gave you 271,000 seconds. It did not go well. Let's go to Ziad and continue the conversation moving forward
yeah,
productively.
just real quick. Sorry, guys. I don't usually skip the line, but Malachi, you just earned my disrespect, man. Listen, you can't come in here when we have this gentleman that is here telling you that Charlie Kirk was his friend, and you come here and just say that it's a thing of the past. Have some decency, man. Have some respect for people. Have some respect for these people that are saying no, this is an American that was killed, that was assassinated, and the authorities are hiding things. Have some decency. This is why you guys are being looked down upon because of this attitude that you guys have. Sorry, sorry for that, man. I
Well,
just couldn't.
I just want to jump off that real quickly and just say that like thank you for saying that first off, and second off, like
Ziad is wonderful.
thank you, Ziad. Like seriously, another thing is just like Charlie himself, like, and this is part of why he didn't want to debate Nick Fuentes, which again I agreed with at the time. Like, he didn't want to platform trolls, and at the time he viewed Nick Fuentes as a troll, and he engaged as a troll. He still kind of is a troll. I think he's probably controlled opposition and meant to like you said, Ian, like get us close enough, but not really there, and then distract us again, and like it's just this whole cycle, right? But just so they can't say they're suppressing free speech, etc. All that being said, though, like, yeah, he was like a person, he was a friend, but also he didn't engage in trolling. So the minute that Andrew Colvett and Blake Neff, a couple weeks ago had that weird instance where like, oh, we wanted to troll the trolls. It's like, that is never something that Charlie would do. That like those words coming out of his studio should be rejected outright. Charlie did not platform trolls. He didn't engage in trolling. And so doing that from his studio, it just disrespects everything that he stood for and the movement that he built. And it's just a further amplification of, in my opinion, how little these people actually cared about Charlie. And it's just like you're willing to now troll people who, like myself and like Candace, genuinely had like a fraternal brotherly love of this man who was publicly executed for simply wanting to have a conversation with people, and by all accounts was generally a moderate, right, and a unifier more than he was a divider. Again, the Jewish media painted him as a divider and then also executed him. In my opinion, again, it's all hypothetical. I'm not trying to get a fucking lawsuit here, but like use your brains, guys. Either take the blue pill and remain in ignorance, or wake up. Like the time to be alert and discernful is now. And so again, just thank you, Ziad. And again, there's a reason the only fucking response these people have is to either troll and distract or call you a retard. Like, look at Cat Turd. Like, the dude has 4 million followers. He is definitely getting paid by Twitter, right? Again, think about it. Elon Musk owns Twitter. Like, he's definitely a government asset. So everyone receiving a fat payout from Twitter is kind of getting paid by the federal government, Like, if you think of in a roundabout way. Again, there's so much money being moved around here. Yeah, I just broke, the 5 million impressions. I made $90 off Twitter. Great. Nothing compared to Cat Turd, who breaks 4 million a day, right? And it's like, again, these people are being pushed. The fake internet theory is real. There's far more bots than there are real people engaging on this. Again, get off your phones, Andrew Colvett, Blake Neff, get out of the studio, get off your high horse and go engage the public like Charlie used to. I fucking dare you. And don't control the people who you're going to ask questions to. Go to a college campus and welcome disagreements first. I bet you will notice that not everyone is on your side, right? And so it's just just don't get lost in the sauce, and also be aware of the reality of things. Turning Point has a documented history of running bot farms. They got outed for it in 2020. I've posted about it twice. Jake Hoffman, you guys probably haven't heard of him. He's now a state senator. He was the one behind that. He's the one behind much of Turning Point's digital media strategy in the beginning. So it's these relationships and ties are very deep. Nobody realizes how far back they go. I got into this when I was 15. I'm almost 30. I didn't expect it to go this way, but I realize now God had me here for a reason, and I'm so grateful for that. And I'm so blessed to be in a position where I can use my voice. And unfortunately, it did cost me a job that I enjoyed very much. I loved working for Maricopa County. I loved the work I was doing. Right, it wasn't even political. It was in a completely different realm. Right, and I was, blessed to be there. I was blessed to have the opportunity I did, but it also gave me a time to observe what had taken place. And I wouldn't have spoken out if I wasn't at my breaking point at a personal level. This isn't about what I can gain from this, bro. This is about defending the name of a man that I loved deeply and was publicly executed in broad daylight. And not only that, it was broadcast around the world instantly. You talk about the shot heard around the world in 1776, bro. Charlie Kirk was the shot seen around the world. And I think it will fundamentally shift this country. Or it's going to put us into a new Zionist world order that we will never be able to break out of, right? And then you get into the questions of how far are we from Christ's return? We'll never know. But again, this is a spiritual world, and we have to remain, observant of that at all times.
So that's really well stated there. And so I know that we've got maybe 15 more minutes or so with our featured guest here. So I want to make sure to go through all the hands. We'll do that kind of in a speed round fashion that I will let Colin and Joanne manage. But one thing I wanted to really quickly ask you was, so what you just said with Cat Turd and all these other just absurd accounts that are thrown in front of everybody. It's my belief that of the big accounts that are out there, one of the only genuine ones would be Kim.com, who was not talking about Jews in Israel, but the last year or so came around and was like, something is really wrong, and has made some of the biggest splash on X. Very curiously, oh, by the way, for anybody that remembers my what if video, no exaggeration, Kim.com downloaded it, uploaded it on his handle, and said, "Is this weird?" And I kid you not, about 15 minutes later was one of the times when X, it was one of maybe 2 or 3 times of the last 2 years combined that X went down globally for the course of something like 3 or 4 hours. And when it came back online, his post, which had hit hundreds of thousands of views, basically went completely stagnant from that point forward. I'm not saying it was because of that post, but man, it felt like it was. But I asked that, Artifacts. I'm curious, of the big accounts that are out there, the big voices. I would give Kim.com a lot of credit. He's obviously been very blunt and direct about Zionism. Are there any other people that you put a lot of faith in to honestly call the balls and the strikes that are still out there?
I'm looking through my following right now. Again, like I really have been tuned out of a lot of this stuff for a minute. I think that like at face value, like I don't put a lot of trust into anybody who has like a large following necessarily. And like, you know, because again, you have to realize like they do have a bottom line at the end of the day that they're trying to meet. Like, and you have to ask what their end game is and their motivations. It's like you have to always be asking those questions, right? And so I'm still kind of trying to figure out some of that. Like the only person whose voice I really trusted was Charlie's, right? And that's why like I was willing to go to the lengths I did for as long as I did, was because I truly, you know, I felt like his voice was despite, you know, the inability to approach the Israel issue sooner than I would have liked, which I think is again on account of the people that were intentionally placed in his life to kind of control that perspective. I think that, you know, I like people like Alex Jones who's willing to like push the narrative, but it's also like kind of like Nick Fuentes as well. There's just like they do these weird things. It's like they take 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and it just seems like very much a managed distraction fest, right? And I think that ultimately that's how we're meant to feel. It just seems that like every day there's something new that comes out, and we can never kind of get to the core of these issues, right? And I think part of that is intentional. Um, and so, I mean, I don't really want to like explicitly endorse anybody because I don't. I've been very disappointed with practically everybody. Like, it's just like people do good things, I say good things, and it's like, okay, what are we really doing here? Like, what are the motivations? What's going on? And you know, so I like things that some people will say. I very much respect Joe Kent. Like he followed me when I first spoke out. I think that him being brave enough to challenge the government narrative and you know go to bat for Charlie Kirk was very brave. I think that like again, you have to act and look at what people are willing to sacrifice. And the kind of statements that they're willing to make, right? I still love Thomas Massey. I think that like, but again, you can also like people and what they stand for and not agree with everything that they're doing or saying. And Charlie was, you know, the best example of that. You know, he was the glue that held together the conservative movement and that made it as strong as it was. You know, he could pull, you know, gays for Trump and like a pro-Palestine person and find a way to meet them in the middle, right? And like it's just it was such a unique time in our nation's history that like no, I don't think anyone's going to ever compare. I think if you play any of his clips that I've posted in the last month and you contrast it to anybody who's speaking these days, it pales in comparison, right? Like we truly did lose like a once in a generation voice. And that's why it frustrates me that these people are trying to speak on his behalf when there's 10 plus years of documented footage that they have. And Erica herself was like, we need a space to, you know, be able to have people ask, how would Charlie feel about an issue? And we would play a clip from 10 months ago or a year ago. And it's like, that's not happening. Like you people are actively working to destroy Candace Owens and punish people like myself who, you know, despite maybe some inconsistencies or whatever, like we're being relentlessly, you know, in pursuit of the truth. And so I don't know, it's very strange. I will mention though that like, you know, it's just very odd. The day after I went public, I had my Facebook account just instantly disabled with no reason. I never received an email. I got told I had 30 days to appeal, and I could not make an official appeal. Which at first I was very, you know, concerned with because I'm a professional photographer. I have an Instagram. Thankfully, I was able to deactivate the link so they didn't nuke my Instagram as well. But like, you know, then I also saw that somebody had looked me up on LinkedIn from Meta, and obviously I have, you know, my Turning Point history on LinkedIn. So it's just I ask these questions like, did someone from the ecosystem make a phone call to nuke my Facebook? And it's just I don't know, and we'll never know. But it's just very odd, you know. I never got a reason. I wasn't able to appeal. It's just nope, you're locked out and you can't talk to anybody. And now I lost my Facebook. So I don't know, very strange.
And very predictable. It's almost like the ownership of Facebook is aligned with the same interests and all these other things. That's just conspiratorial. Let's go to Ziad. I'm sure that this is going to be a very beneficial question and inquiry. Again, I just want to remind everybody we got probably about 10 minutes left with our featured speaker here. And so we'll try to keep them as poignant as we can. So we'll go Ziad, and then I'm going to take a flyer here. We'll go with Rabbi and then Big B against my my better intuition. But I want to give a big shout out as well to Mr. David Nietzsche. Always an absolute pleasure. And once we get through these questions, I'll be very curious for some of his thoughts to kind of wind down the space. So let's start with Ziad again.
Yeah, thank you, Ian. Artifacts. I don't know if you've talked about this or not, but how do we, like the older people, uh, how do we talk to the young folks that are have been brainwashed, have been deified, whatever you want to call it? How do we approach them in the proper way, the most effective way? Thank you.
Yeah, of course. I think it starts, I mean, with stuff like this, obviously, having open conversations, right? But when you get into those like personal interactions, and those like one-on-one conversations, I think you just have to start at the big picture, right? You have to start asking big questions. It's like, hey, why? Start with any pattern that you notice, and just start asking questions, right? Don't like state things as fact, because I mean, it's hard to prove anything as a fact, right? But like, ask questions like Charlie did. Be relentlessly curious. Just look at things and put your thinking cap on. Don't just take what you're being handed, right? Like, it's why I loved history in high school and colleges, because it's like they tell us what they've done. Like we have decades of evidence of how propaganda works and how countries operate, on both sides of the political spectrum, and ultimately it does seem like it's a uniparty throughout history. But like, just ask questions, lead them down that path, kind of guide them, but ultimately recognize that like you might not be able to, right? And be ready for that, expect that, and like, they'll recognize that they killed Christ. So like, they might ultimately kill us as well, and it's like we have to be ready for that. We have to be sober minded of that. We have to be aware of that, and not be naive about that. But also be like realists, and treat people with respect that they deserve, and recognize how deep the brainwashing goes. Like it's frustrating. I try and have these conversations with the older generation, my parents, or whatever, and it's just like, I feel like I take two steps forward, one step back, because like it's just so deeply ingrained. It's like attached to the school systems, it's in the media, it's in politics, it's everywhere. So that's why it's just be skeptical of everything, ask questions, and hope to get down to that answer that I think we're all ultimately pushing for. It's like, where does this lead? Who's actually pulling the strings? And the more that we push it into the spiritual realm, I think we'll get to those answers, right? This is deep historical stuff, right? And it, I think, goes back to the way AI is being integrated into society. The Sumerian demons, whatever you want to like look into that stuff. Like, I don't even know the full background of it, but I know that there's some stuff there that's worth investigating, right? It's not just as nice as it's being presented to you. So just remain curious, and encourage people to do the same. Don't just blindly trust the state, right? It's like, I truly can't believe that for everything that Turning Point has done, they're now like standing on the hill of trust the state and trust the evidence. It's just like insane to me.
Thank you, Artifact.
And I will just say this, like again, like the point Ian makes about like controlled opposition is real. Like it's why I do value smaller creators. It's like, this is the first time I've done a public thing like this, and I'll be honest, like, Ian, I didn't know much about you. I just like, I was trusting that this would be taken at face value and it would be an authentic conversation, right? And so far it has been. I have not felt like there's any influence one way or another. It's been very open, outside of the few people who tried to get up here and sway us. And there are plenty of creators doing that. I've made friends with a couple. I will just shout some of them out, like my friend Jade Warwick. She's she's a British immigrant who moved here, became a US citizen, and is very outspoken about these kind of things. And also, it's like, she's also in this system and kind of navigating it. And so there are people who are fighting the good fight. We're out here. But recognize the system we're up against. Look at what they were willing to do to Charlie. It's both a punishment and a message, right? Me getting forced out of my job 2 weeks after going public is a message. It's like, they want to send, stop, but like, no, we're not going to stop. The great part is, like, if you take my life, I get to go meet my creator and go see Charlie soon. So like, awesome, like, bring it on. I have nothing to lose. I lost my mother when I was 23. I just lost my job. Like, you killed Charlie. I'm not going to own a home by the time I'm 40. Like, the economy is more, unaffordable than ever. The boomers can't seem to recognize that, like, it's half their responsibility, and it's like they're simultaneously giving their children's inheritance away to Mark Levin because they believe that God's going to bless them for doing so. And it's just like the scam that Satan has pulled via these institutions, co-opting Zionism and Judaism. It's like, I don't hate Jews outright. It's very clear what's going on. And unfortunately, the power systems that be are trying to, and this is what I was getting at originally when I saw Charlie was killed, I was like, well, there it goes. Like they're gonna make Candace Owens seem like a crackpot because of her views on Israel, and then they're going to, create a new definition for what anti-Semitic speech is. They're going to allow it to spread for a minute, and then they're going to clamp down hard on it. That's what I believe is coming. We'll see if that ends up happening, because again, in my opinion, this all goes back to World War II and ensuring that the Holocaust never happens again. Well, how does the Holocaust never happen again? Like after World War II, the Americans went over to Germany. They studied the population. They were like, how did this happen? Oh, they're a young, primarily, Aryan Christian population that loves their nation. So we need to make sure that this never happens again in America. And what was the movement Charlie Kirk was building? It was young, disenfranchised males, primarily, Caucasian, and they were primarily Christian, and they were challenging everything that these institutions have existed in power and pulled power from for hundreds of years. So, it was to be expected, and I think that what we're witnessing right now with everything from Ben Shapiro to Andrew Colvett to all these people, it's like, duh, obviously it's happening. It's so transparent that like I can't believe it's getting as amplified as it is, but it's also like it's to be expected because Satan runs the world.
No, very, very well
All
stated.
right.
And so again, we'll go through speed round because, like I said, we're probably got about 8 minutes, 7 minutes left with our host. Malachi giving me the thumbs down. No, you are not welcome back up here, Malachi. You can just put your hand down and stop attempting. We will go against my better judgment to Mr. Bigby, and then we will go to Rabbi. Please keep the questions pointed and specific so they can be answered rather quickly.
Yeah, so I don't have any questions, but I wanted to respond to, I think Artifacts said earlier, number one, that America pays a lot of money to Israel, doesn't receive anything in return. I just wanted to clarify that first, Israel receives about 3.8 billion a year. That's not really just free cash. It comes through a foreign military financing agreement that's governed by an MOU. So it's really only for security assistance. In return, Israel spends about 13.8 billion
How
on
much do you think
U.S.
the United
commercial goods
States?
every
How
year,
much do
and
you
they
think
have
the United
almost 40
States
billion.
spent in the war against Iran over the last, let's call it, 12 months?
Entirely too much, but that's
No,
the U.S.'s
it's
decision,
it's
not
not.
Israel's.
It's it's clearly not. And the answer is two
Bro,
to
the vice
four
president
hundred
runs his
billion dollars.
decisions by Netanyahu. I don't know who you think runs the show here, but like we are
The
a
vice
nation
president has
subverted.
proven
I
to
don't
be
like you
unreliable and
can't cut it any
anti-Semitic.
other way. Israeli interests are taken into consideration before
Listen,
Americans.
I hope
Fact. There's no way you can argue it. I'm sorry.
This always comes up too. It's like actually we use this to finance our military. Well, in the U.S., the biggest line item that the government has, except for certain welfare things, is the military expenditure. In certain years, that has been the biggest line item. So, and interest now, funnily enough. But either way, if we didn't have military expenditure, I mean, the U.S. could do things that Israel gets to do because they don't have military expenditure like free college and things like this, and healthcare. Right? I don't think you'd be able to afford that if you had to pay for all of this military stuff the U.S. gives you, right? That's the problem.
Sorry, am I able? Can you hear me?
Hmm.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say we have also almost 40 billion in long-term military contracts with the United States that we're paying for. So it's not like US gets nothing in return, as was stated by Artifacts. In any case, I don't want to
The
waste
United
too much
States
more
gets
time.
nothing.
Artifacts,
Doesn't
I
he
hope you
sound
can get on
exactly like
Candace.
Netanyahu, guys?
He does
Sorry,
actually, but it's not you
yeah, a
guys
little
like to
bit, I
straw
know.
man.
Weird.
You guys
It's
straw
my
man the
natural
argument. It's
speaking
Well,
not
voice,
and
but I'm
hang on, like
fairly
necessarily.
good.
I do want to respond very briefly. It's like okay, great. They have those government contracts. Amazing. Awesome. Like we would not need to have as strong of a military if we weren't engaging in wars on Israel's behalf, quite frankly. If we weren't letting Israel false flag us and then draw us into wars, as they have done multiple times in the past. You cannot escape the history of the USS Liberty. It's not anti-Semitic to reference history. I'm sorry, it's not. Like you can try and twist it all you want. Your labels aren't going to work on me. Like it doesn't work, bro. Your arguments fall so flat on their face. All you have to stand on is emotional manipulation. allegedly 6 million people died. Great. The Bolsheviks have killed far more. Like communists have killed so much more people that like making the Holocaust like the greatest evil that has ever taken place is like the most asinine thing ever, quite frankly. Like every religious group has been persecuted throughout history. You guys aren't special. You're also not God's chosen people. That's why Christ came. So like the amount of money that the United States military may or may not receive from Israel, I could give two shits about when like the average American under 30 or like can't fucking afford a home, bro. Like it doesn't matter. And the reason we can't afford a home is because we're in all these fucking wars because of Israel. Like you can't cut it any other way. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's also like this argument will give you guys back 13 billion a year. Well, okay, so you cost us $1 trillion, and then you give us back a couple billion. So all right, we get a net negative balance of however many hundreds of billions over the decades that we've been working with you guys. I mean, if you want to call it that, right? That's the thing. It's not even if you could say, right, that the fact of the matter is that the only reason that we wouldn't even buy this stuff anyway, because we could just manufacture it here, which is kind of a net loss too. It's like, great, we buy some stuff from you guys. Well, also our manufacturing base is in the shitter, and we should probably just be doing that stuff at home instead of having a foreign nation make our stuff, especially if it's military shit. But as we can see, we get more entwined every day with the Israeli military. So like, none of these arguments ever have been good for the idea that they are any sort of like net benefit to us in any shape, form, or fashion. They always straw man the argument and say, oh, well, we actually do give you guys back some money. But the argument is that you're a net drain. That's the thing. Not that you have never given back anything, right? It's that you are a net drain overall, and they never argue against this.
Well, and the sad part is that what you just heard, for the people that are just listening, that normally works on people. And instead, you come into a room of people that are educated on these realities. And when it comes to the cost, oh, by the way, I have that little handy dandy infographic on the $8.5 trillion that were estimated to have been spent on the Middle East, both for expansion aid and military. Now, that $8.5 trillion for Americans could have literally provided everyone with homes, education, food. We would have completely eradicated most forms of major diseases that are cutting down on the lifespans of people, while, according to Grok, increasing the average lifespan of Americans by 3 years, while also being able to do all these other things for everybody to increase the quality of life. Instead, it was basically handed over carte blanche to another group of people, because otherwise we're just terrible anti-Semites.
Well,
Sorry,
and
when
I'll
you
say
say
this
8
too. It's
trillion,
like
what are you referring
I
to?
just want to say this is part of like what disenfranchised me in the political system when I was, producing a daily podcast for Jack Posobiec, for example. It's like I started to kind of realize, like, bro, if everything got fixed, these people would have nothing to talk about, right? And so like that's a bigger argument to be made, which is like these people aren't incompetent. Like economists know, like there are very smart people working on these issues. Like they know that that money could be better spent, and every time it's not, right? And so it's because of the way that capitalism is integrated into everything. In my opinion, I love capitalism. Don't get me wrong, but like there are still flaws in it. We can still criticize it. We can be complex humans and appreciate something while still being, critical of what it's done. But like at the same time, like recognize that like that's why paid opposition exists, because it can only get so far, because God forbid we do actually begin to change things. It's like that would uproot the entire system. Like it literally would change the world, and they don't want that to happen. There is so much in place to prevent that from happening. So just be realistic about that too, and recognize that like the amount of money is probably beyond what any of us could ever imagine. So
Sorry, when you say 8 trillion, I want to
No,
be
very,
respectful,
very
but
well
what
stated.
is 8 trillion?
8.5 trillion is the estimate that I think it was Brown University did, trying to get the totality of expenditures on the Middle East in terms of direct aid, military involvement, and reconstruction that's been funded by the United States since the crisis of 9/11, which I, of course, would argue was at the direct hand of the very people that we're talking about. And that $8.5 trillion, according to Grok, could basically house, feed, educate, and improve the lives of all Americans in ways that we can only kind of dream of, because of the fact that this has all been handed over to a foreign empire that basically hates us.
So are you saying your government's been retarded for the last 25 years?
No, I'm saying they've been subverted, and that people that stood in the way of it got a bullet in the head by the very group of people that we're talking about, a la JFK. How do you like that,
How are
Mr.
they
Bigby?
subverted for 25 years across the board, both political
Well, I could
parties?
get you a video of
Epstein
Thomas
again.
Massey suggesting that via
Bro, how
APAC
many
that they are
the
all
fact that
owned.
APAC has bought out more than 50% of our politicians, like that is a nation subverted. I don't know, like they don't have to register as a foreign agent, yet they are literally lobbying for a foreign government. Like if that was any other country, if there was China trying to do that, if that was Russia trying to do that, if that was Iran trying to do that, if that was fucking Mexico, if that was Canada, God forbid, they would all have to register as foreign agents. Like I was like, it's just why we don't apply the rules to them. Again, you're not special. You guys aren't chosen people. Like Christ came to make us all one in Him. And yet, they still find a way because, again, they might run the world. You don't want to say it out loud, like, bro, they fucking run the world. I'm sorry. Like, it's so clear.
But the answer to the question of how are we subverted? Well, the answer is implied in the fact that you've gotten thrown out of 109 countries over 1,000
That's a
times.
myth.
Hold on
That's not
one
true.
second. Hold on.
No,
Hold
it's
on.
It's
not.
not true. Ask
Okay.
Grok.
Okay. That's
This is
okay. Well,
just
Ask
that
Grok.
let
It's
me
gaslighting
let
at
me
this
literally
point.
not
hold on.
true.
Hold
There's
on. Let me
actually
Actually, they
hold on.
use
You
kingdoms
know
and
what?
nationalities
villages. It's
and
not
I'll
No,
let
myth.
it
you
nationalities.
talk.
literally
So you
is
can
true. I've seen the
just
entirety of the
mute him for
list.
a
Okay,
second
sure.
because it's okay if you disagree with me. That's fine. But the reason the way that Jewish supremacists do it is they practice outgroup psychopathy. They're the only people in the world, the only people. They are unique in this way. There is no other people, not the Chinese, not Muslims. There's no other people whose modus operandi is clearly to go into a civilization and undermine it by coalescing its malcontents, by practicing prurience, like of course pornography and yes, pedophilia, and basically dividing and conquering. And of course, what were they doing during the Reformation? What were they doing during the Renaissance? What were they doing during the Enlightenment? All of these great thinkers, the mathematicians, the Mozarts, the literary geniuses, what were they doing? They were coin clipping. They were rubbing two coins together and making a baby. Controlling the financial systems is their means of coalescing human effort and then undermining that civilization. It's not as though that they do what the Medicis did in Florence, which is to use their finances to the betterment of civilization, the ennoblement of it, ennoblement of it, such as financing the likes of Michelangelo and Da Vinci and Raphael. No, 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 no. It's all hatred, prurience, and undermining. And by the way, we know that if the parasite lives with itself, it doesn't live well. Like we could easily conduct an experiment. Our lives, every time we've eschewed Jewish supremacists, our lives got a lot better. They got a lot better. You cannot argue that even in Germany, when you were asked to leave, that country was one giant Hurricane Katrina, and it rose very quickly, oddly quickly, to the second most powerful economy, second largest economy on the planet Earth. By the way, this has never happened before and never happened since. And obviously, this in Spain, something similar, not as dramatic, happened when they threw you out in 1492. And so you're asking, how do we do it? I'm s- I'm surprised that you didn't ask this at your club. I'm surprised that you and your buddies don't know how you undermine civilization. Do you not acknowledge that you run 90% of the pornography industry? Is this totally missed on you? Like, don't you did you not notice this? Did you not notice that you tend to try to control speech? You tend to try to take control of the giant megaphones of society. Do you not understand that you tend to deracinaate the culture of the respective societies that you live in? For instance, the ACLU chasing nativity scenes out of the public square all around the country by Jewish supremacists. It's just amazing that you don't see this. What lack of self-awareness.
Well, both of those are tropes and lies. Jews don't own 90% of the porn industry worldwide. That's
Yeah,
totally
That's a lie.
baseless.
They do.
you
That's a
do.
lie.
You can
They
check
do.
Grok.
They
Who
do.
owns
I
who
They
posted
owns
it
do.
in the chat
Pornhub?
for
They
the
do.
space. Check the chat
They
for the space.
Hey, Bibby, who runs Pornhub?
Hey, why was a rabbi shot outside of Pornhub headquarters in Canada? You want to explain that one?
What was he doing outside Pornhub headquarters?
Who is Solomon Friedman?
I think he had just
Bibby.
left the building. Actually,
Huh.
actually, I think
Would
that's
it
what
be
happened.
weird?
Yeah.
Big B, would it be weird if a Jewish rabbi ran Pornhub through a company that they literally mockingly entitled Ethical Capital Partners? Would that be really
Also, I'd
weird?
I
like to
don't
point
think
out
the
that
exception
OnlyFans is
disproves the
one of the
rule.
largest donors to APAC.
The exception to the rule, it's the largest website. Who ran OnlyFans, Big B?
I don't know. I don't watch
The
porn.
most
Oh wait,
famous
you just
rabbi
said it
on
wasn't
Oh,
Reddit.
so,
true.
that is called
No, I
willful
said that
You
ignorance,
90%
literally,
of the
and
industry
you
is not
cannot
owned
make
by
an
Jews,
argument
which
if
is
you
the claim
remain
of
right?
willfully
Satan.
ignorant, my boy.
The most
Yes,
famous rabbi in the world,
yeah.
Rabbi
So you're
Shmuley
at
himself,
so you're at
sells sex
once
toys.
yeah. So you're at once saying that's not true,
That's a
but
good
I
point.
don't know the truth. How would you
No, I
know?
don't know about
How is it?
specific cases.
Hold on. How can you not? How
So
can you know
how
that
do you know the
something isn't
macro if you don't know
true?
the
Right?
micro?
That's an
You can
affirmative statement.
check. I posted
No,
the
no.
screenshots of Grok output in
Hold
the
on.
chat for the
How can
space.
you know that?
You don't say. I'll actually post the exact same one where it said, no, it's not run by those people. And then I said, what about
It's
this
like,
and
he's like,
this and this and this
I mean,
and
you
this?
guys
And
cited
it
right.
Grok
said,
for the
yes, it's all
entirety
run
of the
by them.
space, so I'm citing Grok myself.
Yeah.
You know,
So you said that. Now you said that you didn't get thrown out of 109 countries over 1,000 times.
correct.
What are your numbers? Well, how many times?
Well, I don't know that we have exact
No.
numbers, but
What?
what I do
Okay. You
know
don't.
is that
Well. Okay.
109
Let's
figure.
So
local.
you're making arguments
Right.
without
You asked
knowing
me a question.
anything.
I'm
So
trying
Right.
to
why
answer it.
are you
Right.
here? Like go study
Yeah.
your history
All right.
before
Right.
trying to like
Are you
I'm
saying
happy
that it's
to. So,
108
so that
countries?
109.
Hold on.
No, what
Hold
I'm
on.
saying is
Are you
the
saying that it's
109
108
includes cities,
countries? Hold
towns,
on. Hold
principalities.
on.
It's not
Hold on.
countries.
Hold on. Are you saying that it's 108 countries or 115? Like, in other words, civilizations, groups of people have eschewed you, thrown you out. They get to know you, they get tired of you, and they throw you out. What's the number for you? Like,
Even this argument, by the way, Big B, is not good where you say it was just principalities and duchies.
That is true.
Even if we restricted down to the nation states that did it, some of the most famous examples, France did it 3 different times, Spain did it, Sicily did it, Sardinia did it, England did it. The whole bunch of nation states also did it, more than seems to me to be any other group, even whenever we restricted. So to, I guess, David's
Anti-Semitism is
point,
spread far and wide.
maybe it was
okay.
a dozen countries and real modern nation
So it
states,
wasn't your
you
behavior?
know.
Right.
It,
Well,
No, it's
let's touch on that.
anti-Semitism,
Okay.
religious
no,
disagreements,
it
All
was your
right.
behavior.
So let's
refusal to accept God's chosen people.
okay. Aha. Well, you're certainly explaining to
The
all of us
chosen
why you're so fun to live
pornographers.
with. But listen, you're actually selling the opposite, my friend. You're saying, "Hey, we're chosen, we're special. I wonder why no one likes us." What a lack of
It's not my
self-awareness.
word, my friend. It's God's.
Yeah. Okay. Let's get back to this though. So, what you're saying is that the reason why that you've been thrown out of these countries is because that you claim to be God's chosen people. Is that it? That's it? Like no other behavior.
No, I don't know the reason. Different countries presumably had different reasons.
Well,
I don't
brother,
think they
you
were
what
all the
do you
same
know?
reason. Is that the
My
right,
boy, what
implication?
do you know? Like actually, what do you
right.
know?
Your lack of awareness is
Okay,
astounding.
how many countries?
No, no,
All right,
hold
name
on.
the
No, we're
countries.
not
Name the
done. You didn't
109
answer my
countries. Since
question
you won't
yet.
know the
Hold on.
individual cases, name
Hold
all
on. Hold on. You
109.
didn't answer my question yet. So,
Okay, you
what
can't
do you get?
exactly.
Well, so you have no idea. You've got thrown out of all these countries, right?
We were thrown out of England,
Hold
France,
on. Come
Spain,
on.
Portugal. I
Okay.
can name those. I
Great.
don't know any
Very,
others
very
because I
good.
don't think
Okay.
there were.
You got thrown out of all these countries. You get thrown out a lot. People ask you to leave a lot. Okay.
Across
Now, hold
800
on.
years,
Hold on.
sure.
Right. So,
That's not very
okay.
often.
Okay. But if I was,
4 times in 800
but if
years.
I was constantly,
Can you name one time the Christians were kicked out of a land because of their behavior?
I think they had some disagreements with the Muslims at some point in time.
but where they get thrown,
No, a
right?
disagreement. That's a
Where they get
war.
thrown
Can
out.
you give me an
War and
example where they were
expulsion.
kicked
I
out of a
think war is
nation for
worse than
coin
expulsion.
Yeah.
clipping
No.
or the murder of children or other sexual
Yeah,
degeneracy? Can you
war
give me a
is worse
single
than
example? 'Cause-
expulsion.
Okay.
Hey,
Let's get,
do you happen to know,
and
quick question,
David,
do you happen to know what books the Germans were burning back in the day? Like just off rip. Do you know what those texts were on by chance? Have you done the research
No, I
there?
don't. I don't.
You should because it's a lot of
pedophilia.
the same texts that leading leftist transgender doctors are writing today. And again, it's
What's
like
wrong with
normal people
transgenderism?
have a limit, dude.
You
Like
don't
There's
normal
support
people
so much
LGBT?
have a very
with
high
it.
limit for like bullshit, and then eventually it reaches a
Right.
breaking point, and it's kind of where
What
we're
do you
at
mean
right now. I'm
bullshit?
sorry.
LGBTQ is
But you have
bullshit? Is that
provided
your
a great
implication here?
example of why it is that you got thrown out of those countries. So yes, the Frankfurt School was engaging in pedophilia. This is not in question. Everybody was disgusted by it, and of course, when they started burning. So what were you doing? You were running prostitution rings, and guess what you were doing? You were feeding off of the carrion of what was left of German civilization after World War One. And so watching you do this. It was very disgusting. The Germans really didn't like this. And when they got tired of it, that was precisely the material that was burning. Now, look, I get that you're proud of pedophilia just as much as you're proud of genocide, but you can at least admit that people don't like living with people like that, right? I mean, even if you're Ted Bundy and you're saying, look, I don't care that I'm Ted Bundy, you know people don't like it, right? You have that level of self awareness. Sure, you do, right?
Sorry, like, what's your analogy? Ted Bundy
You
and
know,
what?
you so surely you know, like the Frankfurt School, the books they were burning, the Frankfurt School was
Uh-huh.
engaging in pedophilia and prostitution, absolute all of that stuff, surgical stuff too, and experimentations that would have made Joseph Mengele proud. And this is precisely the material that they were burning. You understand that people don't like this wherever you go. Like you now realize the level that you run the porn industry, and of course, I'm sure you're proud of that. But my point is, you understand people don't like that, right? They don't like this about you, right?
Are you
I'm
implying
asking you a
that the
question.
majority of right,
Hold
and I'm
on.
trying to answer it. Are you implying that the majority of Jewish people support pedophilia?
That's
That sounds like the implication.
well, they tolerate it. Like how many people in Germany were denouncing the Frankfurt School when it was there? How many people, for instance, let me ask you this. If we find out indefatigably that Epstein was working with the Mossad, will you denounce Israel for that?
I think intelligence
Oh,
agencies have valid reasons to use blackmail to their advantage.
blackmail using the rape
That's
of
such an
children.
Listen, if
obvious
some kids need
deflection.
dough to
Blackmail
protect
using
This
the
this
Israel,
is this
rape.
is
no,
how
whatever.
all Zionist
How can you
mouthpieces
guys
operate, by
refrain
the
from
way.
Right.
it?
They use
Well, there's no
emotional
proof of that
Hold
manipulation
on.
and
No,
specific
willful
but you just
allegation.
ignorance.
admitted to it. You can't take that
Well,
back. You
no, I
just
said blackmail
accepted.
has its
You
uses
just
for intelligence
you
agencies,
just
but
accepted the
there's
fact.
no proof of
Hold
those
on. Hold
specific
on.
allegations.
You
There's no
just now,
videotape out there.
but you excused it. You said you legitimized the
I excuse
idea of
blackmail. I don't
using the. Well,
excuse
you
the
know,
specific
you didn't
allegations
know that's
behind
what
his case.
you didn't know that's what the Epstein people were doing. You didn't know that.
Have you seen
Hold
videotapes?
on.
I
Hold on.
haven't.
Hold on. So now
I
you're
haven't seen
saying.
proof.
So now you doubt that
Have
that
you
Epstein was doing
seen the
that,
videotapes?
right?
Yeah, I haven't
No,
seen any
okay,
proof. I don't
good.
think anyone
Now you
has. They haven't
know.
released
Look,
any
at
proof.
the very least, now you know why no one likes you. Okay,
Yeah.
you're
Well, I mean, I
excusing
like
and
to see evidence
tolerating. You're
before I
going,
draw conclusions.
well,
Sounds like you're not a
if I
fan of
don't
that.
catch him with the child before he's buried it, if I don't catch them
I
with
don't
the,
have to catch him. I
yes,
just need
I
to see
mean, to be
proof.
fair,
absolutely,
Bigby, like,
yeah.
Hey,
yeah.
Colin, am I misremembering, or was there an email in the Epstein files where it literally talks about an extremely wealthy, if not billionaire, Jewish individual biting into the private parts of a young
That's a
girl
single
and
person.
asking Jeffrey Epstein? Oh,
That was just
wait,
one Jew.
but I thought you said that didn't happen on the island.
Why I said I
Isn't that your
didn't.
very
No, you
claim?
said Jeffrey Epstein had videos of people committing
I never
acts
said
of rape
videos.
and
We never
child
said
Do
abuse
you
that.
in
I just
understand
Israel.
how wait. Do you understand how absurd this degree of pilpul is? You're now literally suggesting that despite emails that clearly identify that not only did pedophilia happen, but that literally they were murdering young children by biting into their private parts and bleeding them out to death. And your point is, well, I haven't seen the videotape. This is why people get really tired of it. Do you know I went into Grok because I have a list of the top 20 pornographic sites that are run by these people that wear small hats. According to Grok, almost 60 to 70% of all pornography that is viewed in the United States is just off of those 20 sites that are all in the control of that tiny group of people. If you want, I will read off all of the names of them. It includes Pornhub, YouPorn, RedTube, Tube8, OnlyFans, Brazzers, Reality King, Digital Playground, Twisties, men.com, because you got to get in your homosexual stuff. Sean Cody, whatever that is. Blacked, Tushy, Vixen, Balesa.co, Babes.com, Mofos.com, FakeHub.com,
That's your
Transangels.com.
favorite one,
Got to push
Bigby.
that LGBT ID, right? Big got to get that trans stuff in there. And then whynotbuy.com. I'm not even making up the name of that site. Now, that's just 20 big ones. If I were to go through the entire list of all pornographic sites that are run by Jews, it's probably, like David said, 90-95% of all of it. And you know what was curiously in that book, Bernie? It wasn't just stuff on, let's say, leftist or liberal agendas. It was literal pornography. Do you know what that pornography included? Things about boys becoming girls, girls becoming boys, those little children being sexually assaulted. There's also another book entitled Germany Must Perish, in which they talked about literally the sterilization of all of the Germans. Do you know who wrote that? It wasn't a Muslim. It wasn't a Chinese guy. It wasn't an alien. It was a Jew, right? So we look over these long progressions of history. You want to sit there and project and say, "Wow, it's me. We can't have these terrors." But very much like our guest speaker, Artifacts mentioned, it was the communists who in Russia mass murdered 60 plus million people. They probably mass murdered another 50 plus million in China. Do you know who founded the CCP? You know who's that origin?
Was it the same group of people and same ideology? And you wonder why there's all these periods of time where they've been kicked out of nations after nation after nation. And not only did those nations do well, but you talked earlier about the Spanish expulsion. You know what immediately followed after that? It was the golden age of Spain. Is that remotely wild to you? Do you want to have a look in the mirror and say, when my group of people leave the party becomes the best party that's ever been a party? And you want to sit there and be like, I don't understand why nobody likes me. It's so laughable. And the fact that not only do you accept you don't accept the obvious, right? You just laugh off what was happening on Epstein Island, even though we all know, but then you just gaslight us about it. I'm surprised that you're not saying, yeah, well, Epstein Island was the best place ever for children. They built a museum and amusement parks just like Walt Disney, right? It's like insane that we have to listen to this stuff over and over and over and over again. Zero self-awareness, complete hubris, low IQ, the thought that you're actually convincing anybody with absolute pilpul of the lowest varietal. It's literally like a little child coming into a room of astronauts and astrophysicists and being like, guys, let me tell you all about my great mathematical skills. I can figure out that 3 times 2 is 94. And we're like, please leave. And you're like, but I'm the greatest ever. No, you're not. You're low IQ. You're frustrating as can be. You have zero self-awareness. In many ways, you're like the vampire. You have no shadow, no reflection. You suck off the blood of everybody else. You can't construct anything except materialism. It's unbelievable. It's really exhausting. And even when we try to be honest and fair and reasonable, you just gaslight up to wazoo. Oh, you think that we run your country? After Thomas Massey said, you do. And then you say, well, I guess you're not capable and competent. Not like you got there via means of strength. You won't even acknowledge that you do it. It's unbelievable we have to watch this over and over and over and over again with the same group of people. So no, you don't get to raise your hand. No, you don't get to speak any further. No, we're not going to put up with any more of the pilpul and the gaslighting. Get the hell out. I'm tired of it. We're going to try and have a productive little end of this conversation with Artifacts before we close everything down. David, I'm sorry. It is just, it's insufferable.
And I
Did he cut out?
Yes.
sorry, I got
Oh,
muted.
I was about to drop
I
myself. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
go for it,
I
David.
want everybody to hear this. And my reply to this isn't to hate this person. Listen, you can hear the absolute enmity. It says in the Quran, these people, Christians are not men of enmity. They're humble and sincere. But then it says the Jews, well, there's severe enmity, and you can hear it. This person is just dripping with hatred and contempt of you. And this is what we have dealt with. I heard all of you talking about, well, $8 trillion and this and that. I think it is incomprehensible. This giant leap our civilization will make forward when we eschew Jewish supremacism. And we are not going to do that by hating them back. You cannot outsnake a snake. You cannot do that. And if you and when he's saying this, notice he wants you. He wants to fill you with the hatred that he has. He wants to see that reflected back. That is the only way that the vampire experiences himself. Not in the mirror of his own consciousness. That's not it. But in the hatred that he inspires within others. So what's our way forward? Our way forward is to follow, to double down on seeing the divine light within us and demanding our freedom. Hegel said that the slave ultimately always rises up because he's unsatisfied with his condition. And ultimately that's us. Human beings want to be free. Freedom is our destiny as a species. And when you hear this awful, awful, immiserating force embodied in this person, take their word for it. Demand emancipation from it. That's the only way forward, Ian. I really don't have much. I like that you're shutting down the conversation because we get it. You hate us. Child pedophilia is fine with you. Genocide is fine with you. It's all a word game. Why even you'll impart new meanings to old words to benefit you because these people change nomenclature the way criminals change disguises. Nothing matters. Not truth, not goodness, not kindness, not innocence. And so what's the answer? The answer is to give them a flower, maybe a Coke, tell them to be on their way, let the vampires go live with vampires, and let the rest of us be free.
Yeah, can I say a couple of words, man, here?
Oh, of course. Go for it.
Okay, so you guys know, I'm living abroad. I'm an American citizen, and I'm fused to what happens in America. And my heart bleeds for those innocent children that were molested, trafficked by the Epstein and his, his alikes. My heart bleeds for the veterans who take out their lives 21, 22 per day. My heart bleeds for the homeless people. Now, when I listen to Big B, and he's here, so I'm not talking behind his back. I did not hear him say once that he feels sympathy for those victims of Epstein. Not once. I didn't see him. I see him defending Israel and how much Israel gets in benefits. No, and it's not just 3.8 billion per year. Look at all the churches that send hundreds of millions of dollars per year. Look at University of Tel Aviv receiving 650 million or 600 million per year. To pay for salaries and benefits to while the American student is forced to pay their student loans. That is not fair, right? So this not let's not just minimize things. This call a spade is spade. Now, when I hear like Ben Shapiro blame Social Security for the debt of the federal government, we didn't just take his word for it. We went and researched, and we went and calculated how much was spent, and it was like under $1 trillion out of the $39 trillion. It was under $1 trillion that Social Security spent on Americans. So these lies, man. I mean, stop it. Stop these lies. And face reality and just live like human beings. That's all we're asking you to do. Thank you.
I just find it wild, somebody trying to suggest or minimize the horrors that took place on Epstein Island. That is really remarkable. No, it didn't happen. No, it
Do
wasn't
you have
bad. I
the
mean, can you
video?
prove that it's bad? Have you seen the
I
video
Yeah,
of it being
I,
bad?
I,
don't
It's
be
just
so
I kind of
surprised
think
unbelievable.
he
when our
just wants to
president
watch the
literally
video.
minimizes it.
Wait, you're surprised that he wants to watch? I mean,
No, I
dude,
said I kind of think he
I'm
just
not even
wants
gonna.
to watch the video. I think he just wants to do that out of being sick.
Well, did you hear the sites that their people have constructed? I wouldn't be surprised. But Artifacts, I know you're running short on time, so certainly feel free to call out any of the hands that are up, or if you need to wrap, certainly feel free to.
Yeah, I do need to kind of jump. I have something here in about 20 minutes. So I really appreciate you guys. I mean, it's been like 3.5 hours at this point. Shit. We definitely need to do this again. I very much enjoyed the opportunity. Yeah, just a little self promo here. Stay tuned. We're just getting started. I'm gonna have some merch on the way soon for White Goy Summer. Dropping a book as soon as I can get it out. Still debating on whether or not I'll do like a show of my own. I kind of don't like the idea of just becoming another podcaster. So I'm trying to figure out how to
Well,
approach this issue tactfully.
I will
So
say this.
stay tuned. We're just getting
I will say
started.
this, my friend. Have a unique voice. Ian has a unique voice. Everyone that I follow, and I was in a space earlier today with a citizen journalist, and that's his thing, diligent. I would say just have a unique voice. And the second thing is, I liked what I heard from you earlier. The reason why that we call out Jewish supremacy is we still believe in the divine spark of everyone. So even our Jewish brothers and sisters, we invite them. This is a sort of a Western idea. We invite them to join our side. All you have to do is renounce evil. All you have to do is renounce supremacy. All you have to do is join the brotherhood of man. So I respectfully suggest as you go forward, if you carry this message, and it's always one of love and kindness and not one of vengeance, it's always one of emancipation and not one of just sort of complaining about, what the other people are doing. I think it's really much more inspiring. So I just, you already sound like you have a good temperament for this. And I just respectfully suggest that you lean into that in this way by calling out Jewish supremacy specifically and not sort of like the all of them sort of thing.
Yeah, it matters, right? Like again, like for as much as I didn't appreciate Charlie's refusal to engage with it early on, I think that he was going about it in the way that he saw fit. And again, you have to be careful. Like when you look at what they did to JFK and especially what they did to Charlie, like they don't like their power structures being threatened, right? And so again, as the government is working along with Turning Point, in my opinion, to redefine what it means to be an anti-Semite, we have to be very articulate. We have to use our brains. We have to think before we speak. We have to be very clear and communicative and not, rush to emotions and be brash and vengeful and hateful. We have to approach it logically. We have to refer to history. We have to appeal to Christ first and foremost, right? And that's what Charlie Kirk did ultimately before he made any speech. So I'll just leave you guys with that. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak today. And I look forward to doing this again in the future. God bless you all. Have a white boy summer. Stay safe. And remember to question everything and be a thought criminal. We'll talk soon.
Absolutely, and look forward to that. And speaking of additional conversations, we will be speaking a little bit later today. I believe it's with Aaron Lewis. I hope I got that correct, but we'll be having that conversation starting in as little as 2.5 or so hours. So I look forward to everybody in that space if you're able to join. If not, I want to wish, as always, everybody a good morning, good evening, good afternoon, certainly a good night. God bless, Godspeed. We will see you guys all in the next conversation. And like David said, it's not about hating anybody. It's about loving that which is good, defending that which is righteous, trying to make the world a better place, and calling out those that are in the inverse, right? Labeling the lies, labeling the liars, and pushing back on those that'll spread pilpul, projection, and that will gaslight all of us with the endless lies as if Jeffrey Epstein needs to be condemned. What a wild thing to stand behind. So lots of love to everybody out there. We'll see you in the next conversation.